meeting of the City Council to order. We are convening now for the purpose of a work session regarding items for presentation and discussion on issues that might require in-depth consideration by the City Council. No action will be taken by the City Council in this work session. So we're going to start off here and discuss presentations regarding our planning and goals and budget priorities for the City Council. I know you've all had a chance to speak with Hillary here. Hillary, we appreciate you working with us and hope that the time we have together today is profitable. I know Dr. Wilson has to leave about 2:30, so we want to keep this process moving forward. My goal when we're done here next week is that our city manager can take something of value away from this that helps him in his budget process so that he doesn't, when I look at him and say, did you get anything out of this? He doesn't go, again this year like we haven't been. I want something concrete for him. And I know that, you know, we've been discussing stuff that some things that have budget implications, some things may not have budget implications, some things may be for this budget year, some things may be for 3, 4, 5 years out. So, you know, there's a lot we need to discuss. And I don't think we want to start off with anything or just turn it right over to Hillary.
Turn it right over to Hillary.
All right, Hillary, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for having me, and thank you for the time you committed ahead of this meeting and the one that we'll have next week, where you really were very thoughtful in your responses to my many questions, my 1,000 questions that I asked you. But really the purpose of that was to bring together some of those areas of interest so that we could discuss them more thoughtfully and thoroughly as we move forward. I am with a company called SGR. I live in Temple, Texas. I have many, many, many relatives who have passed through Texas Tech University, some more successfully than others. But y'all have been very welcoming and kind to have me. So I hope that today we will get through what we intend to, which again is not decision making. Really today is to start that thought process. We're going to throw information at you and hope that you'll take it between now and next week and sort of ruminate on it and piece together in your mind what you think are those greatest priorities for the upcoming budget year, but then what it is you're looking to obtain or achieve in years beyond that. So I always like to start with some good governance. Let's just talk about kind of high level, what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, what are some good principles to keep in mind. The city manager is going to give you a financial presentation. He's going to give you some numbers. He's going to throw a lot of information at you, but really it's setting the stage for where we stand currently. I asked you all for your SWOT assessments today, point in time, where do we think we are? And this will play into that, but then ultimately it's going to set us up to have a discussion about the next budget year and what some of our priorities are, but also keeping our eye on that longer term future. And are we making good decisions today that will affect the change we expect tomorrow? Then I'm going to dive into the results of those interviews that we did. So kind of the cumulative report of what I heard from you with regard to where we think we stand. And then we will end with what our priorities have been. There's some category areas, but then we want to look at those areas of focus that you all identified, see if the two mesh, and then start to piece together what we think is leading the list of our expectations so that we can come back with either more information for you or a more thorough discussion at next week's session. So really today is a build, throwing a bunch of stuff at you so that we can come back and kind of narrow in next week. So good governance, really we're tasked with and charged with considering all stakeholders. We should be making decisions that are in the best interest of the community as a whole. We want to create community engagement all along the way. You all are no strangers to that, especially this week. But really, we're trying to involve the citizens in the process so they're not surprised by anything that we are bringing to them, but also so they can participate in it and really get the highest level of service you can give them. We're setting priorities and goals. Again, you all are tasked with looking at a fiscal year, a budget year, setting priorities for that year, but ultimately, we're also looking at long-term goals. So considering both of those things. I did not do that, I don't think. There's that, I'll just keep talking. Ensuring the financial health of the organization. So part of that financial picture discussion we will be having is making sure that we're seeing what those trend lines look like. So we're not making a short-term decision that may have a long-term impact. We want to always keep our eye on that longer term as well. Setting expectations for efficient and effective management systems. What is our expectation of staff? What is our expectation of service level? What is our expectation of response times, or whatever those factors are that add to good quality services? Because we want to be able to deliver on our projects and services effectively. We can say all day long we want to keep maintaining that same level of service, but if we have more users, or we have more resources, or we have less resources, that may impact the way we're able to deliver services. And it's to you all to say we're meeting that standard or we're not, and for you to set it. We also want to make sure people have access to those services. So if there are those populations that aren't able to access the service that we are providing because of whatever reason, we want to make sure that we're trying to open those avenues so that the services we're providing can be shared equitably. And then ultimately, we as council members are tasked with holding the organization accountable for its promises. The voters hold you accountable. But part of this is setting those clear expectations, giving that clear direction to management so that he can deliver that to staff, and then you all can hold them accountable to whether or not those expectations were met ultimately. Good governance, it eliminates ambiguity. It says this is what we say we're going to do. We did it or we didn't. And we own our victories and we own our failures. We want to focus on the common issues, not personal interests. Again, that's part of this process, is what do we all agree is something that we want to pursue in this year's budget, so that we can speed the process and reduce inefficiencies, or reduce the amount of time spent inefficiently. The guessing game is always the biggest time suck with staff, right? And so it's really thoughtful for you all to come together at this juncture, and particularly at this point in time, to give that direction so that staff knows what you're expecting rather than guessing. Because we're trying to make good quality decisions that move the community into the future. So good governance requires focusing on that future. Again, we can look right here, right now, but are we missing something that may pay off or not pay off in the long term? We always want to make sure we're considering that, so we're pursuing whatever the long-term interest is, even as we're making short-term decisions. But understanding our roles, following our roles, participating in our roles, respecting one another, respecting those that we serve, respecting the staff that serves this organization, adopting policies and processes so people understand what it is we're doing and how we're doing it. That adds to transparency. It also adds to community engagement because people know where to plug in. Thoughtful deliberation, having those fruitful discussions, again, and taking the time to think through issues as a team, because that's what obviously you are, and ultimately trust. We want to breed trust not only in the organization internally, but also with the public that we serve. So today, just keep these sort of in mind, and I'm sorry that they're not on the screen, but sort of plug them away. Base my decisions on the next generation and not the next election. Focus on the mission, vision, and values when making decisions to do the greatest good for the entire community. Embrace my responsibility to govern rather than manage. Protect the integrity of the process over the rightness of my position. Always be a role model for civility. And never forget, it's not about me, it's not about now, and it never is. So that is your Cliff's Notes. And then I have a graphic that I wanted to show you about sort of this strategic visioning process. Oh, you all have, do you have printouts?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, terrific. Then you can just look at them.
Following along.
Good, yay.
This is those folks out there, I don't know if they can see what
Yeah, they can't. So basically, this is a loop. So you all joined an already moving train, right? I mean, that's what city council and city government is. It's a train that is moving in a direction at all times. And so whether you're the newest member on the council or you're the most senior member, the train constantly moves. And so when you come in as the new person, you're getting on a moving system. And so that system should be cyclical. It should be something that is reviewed. It should be something that's dynamic, that is constantly worked. And so when you look at this graphic, what we're doing today is the circled part the council envisions. But ahead of that, citizen input to council put you all here. Citizen input to council says these are what we think are important. Citizen input to council is we're not using that service at the level that we used to. There's any number of ways that you gain that and you're able to deliver that message to the city staff. Staff also has that responsibility. They're the ones dealing front line with the service level demands. They're the ones dealing with what the next trend is that's coming up. Fielding the next state law that's going to impact the way we do services. So staff is also constantly bringing you input so that you all can envision what right solutions look like. So when you think about envisioning, it could be a policy, it could be your budget every year. It's big things and small things, but ultimately it's to you all to say what is right and wrong and what direction we should go. Because that's what informs staff to be able to plan. So if we look at the budget, again, you all say these are some things that we want to see included this year. He says these are the things we have to do. Staff puts a plan together, brings it back to you, and then you all ultimately get to affirm it. You say yes or no, you raise your hand, yes or no, which gives staff the resources and the direction to actually execute. But you don't take your hands off the wheel. You are evaluating. We put more money in that thing and we thought it was going to produce these results, and it didn't produce those results. It's a cycle. Doesn't mean it should move, ebb, and flow every other day, but it really is something that's living and breathing that we all have to keep in mind. Because on your next one is staff plan. So that's what comes from this, is that we're going to, next week, hopefully give some clear direction, which will allow the city manager to start planning his budget document, which he will bring to you all to debate and affirm in the not so distant summer months. So with that, I am going to turn it over now that you've got your screen back up.
Yep.
And the city manager is going to take you through financial information that may impact some of our thoughtfulness and our discussion in the next session.
Okay. Thank you, Hillary, Council. Apparently it's me. You know, we had these problems Tuesday as well. Just as we did Tuesday, we actually came in here and ran through this earlier today, so we will definitely figure out what's going on. Okay, again, just as Hillary said, I do appreciate everyone being here. I'm going to take a little different approach maybe than what we've done in some of the past ones. I want to start with where we are this year. So what you're going to see here in the next few moments is this year's budget. So it's the FY 25-26 budget. In case it blows up, you do have the handouts. You can follow along with those. The general fund's revenue this year, this current year, is $277.3 million. You may say the budget book says 319. That's true. The difference is solid waste and the transfers. So solid waste is a rate-funded operation, so I've set it aside for the moment, and we're going to go through some items here. So I think first, where does the money come from? Where does it come from? You see there on the left side of the screen, 35.5% or $94.2 million is your property tax. Okay. Second piece in the middle is your sales tax. So 103 is the budget for this year. And you all may recall the summaries I sent out just earlier this week. It looked like we're on track to be a little better than 105. That is your budget number and all the stuff we're going to do today. And then we have what for today we will call the non-tax revenues. Those are franchise fees, pilots, fees for service, all those various miscellaneous things collectively are just less than 26%. You add all that up, matches the first page. It's not just that, I'm not smart enough to do it. Okay. We're going to take that same set of numbers and we're going to take it into the major categories of expense. So first, the largest operation in the general fund is the police department. So it's about 38% of total, 54% of your total tax revenues. We take that piece out. I think the one that I use a lot in civic presentations, 100% of your property tax will not fund the police department. It stays a little bit shy of that. So what this indicates is we're taking all the property tax and we've worked our way a little bit into the sales tax. Moving on, the next largest is going to be the fire department. So 28% of total, 39% of tax revenue. If you follow along my tax revenue and start writing them down, you're gonna realize it adds up to over 100%. We're just trying to build a contrast. So when you catch that, know that we know that as well. So there's the fire department. Moving into the next, would be the public works budget. That does include their capital, just as it does for police and fire. Just about 10% of your total. Parks and recreation. Administrative services, so this is the city attorney, city councilor, myself, city secretary. Finance, HR, and internal audit. Development services. Maintenance services. Cultural services, so this will be your libraries, your museums. West Texas Veterans Cemetery is listed, but know that that one is a zero sum. The dollar that we spend is immediately reimbursed by the Texas Veterans Land Board. It has show in your budget, so I've left it for this one. And then animal services, emergency management. And then the new category of other, municipal court, public health, communications, public engagement. So one thing you might notice for those of y'all that have looked at the budget for several years, historically inside of public safety, we have included the court and public health. We pulled those out, and as we go through the rest of this, public safety is police, fire, emergency management, and animal services. Okay. We're setting the others aside, and we'll reflect that in the budget document.
And why did we make that change?
A lot of questions of what is public service, what is not. If you want them back, we can. That's just at the council's pleasure. But this does give us a little more discrete view of it. And then I've tried, you'll see some staffing charts in a minute to try to do the same. We can focus easier on one piece in a big whole.
Pardon, did you set aside, when you set aside revenue from solid waste, did you set expenses out of public works?
Yes, it's pulled out of both sides. Okay. So that's how the dollar got spent. We built the dollar, we spent the dollar. We just did it 277 million times to get a general fund budget. So here you go back in, same thing you've already seen. This one's listed, and if that's one you want to pull out of your packet so that you can have as you go through discussions later, you're certainly welcome to do that. Okay. Any questions on any of this before I go into the next part and we start looking forward to that?
So, for instance, like in the 106 million for the police department, 6.9 million is capital.
Correct.
And that's included in the 106 million.
It is.
All right. And so where do the capital expense dollars come from? In your
The two primary ways, what is considered to be small or minor capital is in an operating budget. If it is a number that is a capitalized item, it moves over into your capital side budget. Revenue source for the capital budgets, especially in the general fund, we go with cash as far as we can go with cash. If it is a generational level asset, those are eligible for debt financing. There is not debt funded capital in the police department in this budget.
right. So going back to your first page, use of available reserves. Those are not included in these figures because this is only the 265, right?
It's included, but that's cash.
It's cash. Okay. Any other questions? Right.
Okay. Give me just a moment to switch to the next one here.
So before we get too far down, on the 11 million of cash funding, generally went to street maintenance and generally excess revenue from the year prior.
Generally, yes, so the way we run the reserves, every fund has its own reserves, and those are not commingled. Every fund, with very rare exceptions, some of the really particular ones don't, like cemetery. But certainly general fund, water, wastewater, airport, all of those, each fund has a policy that goes with it, and it has a policy reserve amount, 20% in the case of the general fund. That is 20% of the next year's operating budget. Take that, what that means is generally over time, the amount you have to hold against that reserve creeps up ever so slightly. Throughout the course of a budget year, if there are savings realized out of an operating budget, that goes into that reserve, so it's available for the council for the following year.
And it goes into each bucket individually.
Each bucket
It's not just a
individually.
total over here, but each
Yes,
one.
yes, exactly.
They don't spend it all, they get that word in their bucket. Okay.
Right. Well, example over last year where we had the $105 million sales tax budget, we recognized we were going to fall short by about $5 million. We put in the hiring freeze on open positions for non-public safety. That was budgeted money to spend that didn't get spent. Had those not been frozen, that would have rolled over into the reserve, if you'd carried it over to the end of the year. We just flat out didn't get the revenue, therefore we didn't spend the revenue. You budget a project in an operating budget, doesn't cost you what the total budget was, that delta flows in.
So
The second way it builds is if you have a revenue account. We budgeted revenues in this particular account that make up a number, $10,000. $15,000 came in. That $5,000 is not available to the department. It immediately flows into the reserve account. When we sit down to do budgets each year, we take the total in the bucket minus the required reserve. Those then are those dollars that are available for reallocation, the 11.7, when we sat down and did the fiscal year 26 budget.
it comes out of those individual buckets, it goes into a new bucket, which becomes used for
For funding,
funding other things.
sales tax, property tax.
Right, and they'll just, with my budget brain turned on today, never goes into another bucket. If we take it out of that available reserve, it goes to a specific assigned use.
I'm with you. I probably
I think it's the same thing, it
I
just,
probably misstated how we're doing it. We didn't create a new bucket, but we've got funds.
And I think the hard thing to get a head around, if for me and maybe for other people, is, each one has their own individual buckets.
Correct.
You like to think it's all poured over here in just one. In one sense, it is. It's a number, it's a big number, but it's broken up into individual numbers based on the category or whatever that it came out of. So
and
it's all technically available to be used wherever, though. Is that not okay? That's not correct. All right.
not correct.
Okay.
So maybe let's look at that another way, because I hear this out in public quite a bit.
Yes.
You've got a $940 million budget, why can't you get $1 million to do this?
Yes.
Because there is not a bucket of 940, but your city budget does total up to a little over $940 million. But that's not a budget. You've got one for every individual enterprise fund, internal fund, special revenue fund, and then the general fund.
That's how
Each of those has its reserve, but those, are there ways to move those reserve dollars fund to fund? There are. It's quite particular. You can do it. And I don't recall, though, that in the 10 years I've been back, we've ever done that.
But that's not necessarily something you can do on your own. Does that require council?
I cannot.
Yeah, the council would have to approve moving money from one bucket to another.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's a very deliberate set of actions that you do to keep you within the bounds of the, we call it GAAP, generally acceptable accounting practices, and GASB, Government Accounting Standard Bureau. Just in that thing called state law too.
It's so different from how we handle a budget. If you got excess money at the end of the year, it's in your checking account, or your savings account. You can move it over wherever you want. That's not the way it works in a city.
Sure. But to let's say Parks and Rec, use them as an example, who have limited but an occasional revenue source. We budgeted 10,000 in revenue for this activity. It became 15,000. That 5,000 remains in Parks and Recs. No, it does not. Okay, so
When you sum them up at the end of the year, revenue minus expense, whatever's, this is done at the fund level, so it's not done at the individual department. When you sum up your budgets, your actuals at the end of the year, anything that is a positive number above expense goes into that fund's reserve. It's not done by department.
So general fund reserve, airport fund reserve, so on and so forth.
Correct.
And so when Parks and Recs fund reserve exceeds the requirement, 20%.
There is not a Parks and Rec separate reserve.
Their general fund.
There is a particular piece inside of there, and Parks is a good example of this. We are building towards future, like replacement of the turf at Burl Huffman, and that money is in a capital project. You use a capital project for that, both because it's a capital improvement, and because a capital project crosses the years. Those don't get automatically zeroed out at the end of a year. That's how we're saving towards that. Today, we're putting revenue in that capital account, but we don't yet have an expense against it. Revenue gets to where it is, you program the expense, that capital project's done.
So to my question, we've got an excess revenue over the budgeted revenue. At the end of the year, that those dollars are swept into next year's budget for that department,
Into that reserve fund.
And can be drawn out of that
And it
reserve.
only comes back out with a council action. I cannot do that.
Let me make sure I understand. If the police department has an extra $100 at the end of the year, that goes into the holistic general funds reserve account. If Parks, like Tim mentioned, has an extra $200, same thing, it goes into that bank account, general fund reserve. But if the airport has extra money, that goes into the airport's general fund reserve, right?
Yes,
Because it's a separate enterprise fund.
correct.
Okay, I think I get it.
And then the day my police department has $100 of revenue left, we are throwing a party.
For sake of argument.
But it's an excellent point, and it really highlights why that you have the sources of revenue that you do. Generally speaking, a general fund service will never generate a revenue equivalent to its cost. That's why you have sales tax and property tax.
but the desire is to have the enterprise funds revenues equal their expenses
Plus,
with the slight excess, but at the same time, we budget our rates every year based on projected revenue needs with slight increase, not as a money-making enterprise that can then go to general fund. So the point, the water department is not going to shift money into other departments.
that is correct. And that plus that you put in an enterprise budget is to both maintain and to improve over time your system. It's your capital. All good questions. Anybody else? And I apologize, I should have said this up front. I built today, my part of the presentation today is very focused on the general fund. You can talk about anything on enterprise that you want, and we'll, if we don't have the numbers, we'll go pull them forward. Okay. All right, let's go a little bit more here. Let's talk about, now, where is the general fund today, now that we've talked about revenue and expense? And first, we all know the most important thing we have in any of our funds is our people. So in 2022, the population of Lubbock was just a little over 261,000. I had 1,660 people in the general fund. So those are city employees delivering the services for which we take the revenue. That works out to 6.35 employees per 1,000 population. And that's all in for the general fund. That's police, fire, parks, streets, alleys, you name it. In 2026, we're sitting at, and this is this fiscal year, we're sitting at 276,000 population, so nearly a 15,000 person increase. 1,684 staff members. If you go pull my budget, you'll see there's actually 9 more than that. Those are the West Texas Veteran Cemetery employees who again are not city function. 1,684. So my staffing rate versus population actually declined just a little bit. There's another thing that's kind of in that number. Council is aware, those that have been through the budgets, every public health department employee is shown in the general fund, even though the vast majority of them are not paid out of the general fund. So if we were to true that up, that number would actually fall by about 40, by about an additional 40. So just know that and you'll see it. Yes, sir.
Take 40 staff members off of the 1684 number. Take 40 off of the 1660 number.
It hasn't necessarily grown.
Hadn't necessarily changed, but
No, it has not changed, but it will lower your ratio of staff per population.
is there a norm, an expected norm in the city industry?
We spent the last 3 years off and on trying to do that.
Every city's different.
And what's in your general fund versus another city's general fund is very little common metric. And it doesn't matter if I look at similar size, bigger or smaller. We've also tried to take general fund budgets, police budgets, fire budgets, et cetera, and see if we can normalize those to dollars per capita. And we can't get that to work. There are police departments that actually are also emergency management, or emergency management's the fire department, or the code enforcement. There was a time in Lubbock that the police department was both the code enforcement department and animal control. And you still see remnants of different ways of doing it, so we have not been able to standardize them.
Or can you go back 10, 12, 15 years and say that 10 years ago we were 6.3, 7.2,
We were higher than this,
higher than 6.3 or 6.1?
higher than 6.3. Here in a minute, I'll show you where the actual counts have changed for the 5 years that are represented on that chart.
To make a point, we do more with less year over year over year.
We're trying, yes.
And in some ways, though, you should be able to do more with less. There's a certain amount of positions you have to have regardless. You start with that, then you build on top of it. That one really never much goes down. So the larger your city gets, you should become more efficient, even though you do continue to have to add new people to serve. But your administration doesn't have to necessarily grow commensurate with everything else.
And I think I would have,
I might agree with that.
Well, it's true. Not everybody's going to agree with that. But I think you can see it in the educational system. Your administration, to the extent it grows very large, it takes away from the frontline person that you need actually teaching your students. And that's the thing I always have to, that's one of my concerns always, that your administration overhead does not overcome the boots on the ground that actually deliver the face-to-face service to people.
That's a good basic business premise.
It's just a general premise.
I think
not
it's
effective in every situation. So.
Yes, but it would be interesting had we added in say the last 15 years, we've added one assistant city manager, or we've had to add two. We've added, however many in these different, categories to accommodate our growth.
I think I can show that here in just a moment.
I'm sorry, I found my head up.
Nope, I appreciate it. And this is good discussion. What I would consider your back office stuff, it does not have to or shouldn't grow at the same rate that your actual service delivery grows. I'm going to show in a minute, we're behind on service delivery in some areas. We definitely are. Okay, I'm going to start into those. Here's the numbers. Remember that your total FTE count has grown by 24. The net increase is 24. 44 of the 24 are in public safety. Strictly being animal services, fire, and police. Most of the growth in LAS has been in the last 3 years. Development services, it's a net one. Building safety, remember the booms that we went through with just the incredible 2,600 building permits and all of those things. Environmental health, it would not surprise me as the state roll out the multi vendor and some stuff like that, that's likely to come down because y'all just approved a contract for us to do some portion of the state's work on that, and we'll see how that works. It's a pretty tight deal. The planning department, we actually have one less. We've been very successful in bringing in good people, growing them, training them, certifying them. We have gotten more efficient. Public Works and Solid Waste, we're down one in engineering over this period of time. We're down 4 in the street department. Those are 4 positions that we try, they're what I call perennially unfilled. They're on a book, but they're hard to get filled. We traded those several budget years ago to enhance other positions that we could. And then the traffic department's down 2. That's actually in the office portion of it, not in the field portion of it. Culture and rec, they're down 11, and all 11 of those are in the parks department. And again, it would look different if I left the vet cemetery in there, but it's wrong if we do.
Is that because of contract mowing? Sorry, sir.
Are these FT full-time positions, or is it
Those
included?
positions were all eliminated the year we did the no new revenue budget development.
They want them restored.
But they are full-time positions or equivalent part-time positions to full.
We have put some part-times in over the years, but these positions have never come back.
Okay, all right. So this doesn't include
This is all full-time employee
all
count.
full-time employees, okay.
What were those positions though, Jarrett? Were those from switching to contract mowing, or what did we do there?
No.
We've always done contract mowing. You can't quite get the numbers yet to where it'll flip over and it's better to do it in-house. So those were all field level people.
Okay.
There may have been 2 that were office, but the majority were in the field.
Doing what type of work, like maintenance work on playgrounds and things like that?
Everything, maintenance, irrigation, lighting,
Gotcha. Okay.
athletic fields.
Tree trimming, everything.
We do some mowing. We do the makeup mowing. We do mowing for special events. The routine mowing is what's done by the contractors.
It went up $1 million last year, right?
$180,000.
Yeah.
It looks better than it's looked in a long time. Okay, administrative services. I have one less assistant city manager than I had 5 years ago. The city secretary shows a +1. That +1, though, is actually in the vital statistics office. So Courtney's count includes running that office over here on the north side of the building. Internal audit down 1. What we've struggled with there is having to continually upgrade the positions that remain to get the right folks with the right knowledge in there, and we've let those of the lower level positions. The communications and public engagement department's down 2 from where that was. In the quote other count, municipal court is down 3 and public health is up 3. Remember, those are not general fund funded positions for public health. Very small part of the department to pay those general fund. So those are the actual changes.
And so when we look at these changes, are these budgeted positions or are these real bodies in the field?
Everything in here is a budgeted full-time equivalent position.
And so when you see a negative, in all likelihood, that is a real individual who no longer is employed by the city.
It's a position that does not exist and cannot be filled.
But that's not to say that LAS has hired 7 more
No, they're shy.
officers. Maybe they have, but it doesn't ensure that they have.
The overall city vacancy rate today, as of June 30, is about 7.4%. The primary vacancies are in field services. The police department has less than a 2% vacancy rate. The fire department has roughly just a little over a 1. The difference is police, we can now hire throughout a year. We can do that around the calendar. Fire is done once a year. So they start off with no vacancies, It comes up enough to run an academy, and it's back to no vacancies. So it's just different. Where you'll see the biggest vacancies are going to be in things like street department, traffic in the field, that kind of stuff.
Just because these show that there's either we've added one or we are negative, we still have several areas for most of these departments that are needing other employees.
There are still frozen positions in a few departments, not all of them. Not all the positions that were frozen are still frozen, but some of them are. I now also have the year's performance measures to look at our accountability response and all of that stuff, and we're working through that as part of the budget.
You know off the top of your head what LAS's vacancy rate is?
I do. Well, I know what they need.
Well, I can pull that on a break.
As of July 7th, there are vacant 2 positions, ECR report. 2? 2 positions.
2 field officers, 1 dispatcher, 1 shelter officer.
I don't think those are vacancies.
That's right. They're looking to put those positions. They're needing those.
I would like those.
They would,
That's a
They
would
want
like. That's a little
and
different.
so do our citizens,
So
so.
just, and again, for me to make sure about this, these are budgeted positions or positions that we had that we no longer have, but it doesn't include positions you budget for but aren't filled. Okay, right.
These are budgeted, authorized positions, and how that number has changed.
And we've moved that
over
number
the
down.
years.
Jared, do you know off the top of your head how many positions we have currently that are still frozen? I have some.
I'll check.
My brain is sitting in the front row right there.
Another important number, yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Total budgeted positions within the city, including
2,164.
2164.
That's non-LP&L. That's everything but LP&L.
$50 frozen positions, how many, if you know, just unfilled?
Of the total positions that are authorized throughout the city, 7.4% of them are vacant. That's bigger than just the general
Okay,
fund.
that's the 7.4. Okay,
And those vacancies will primarily be in field service positions.
I got you.
Math in public,
Don't do it.
160.
It's right at 171, I think is what we had, but yeah. Remember, for the COVID years, all across, I'm sure the country, I know in the state, it was hard to get people to work. And our vacancy rate in the city spiked at 11.9% of funded positions. Council made a conscious decision to allow me to try some stuff I'd never tried before to get our workers back. And right before we went into the freeze last year, your cumulative city vacancy rate was down to 5.6%. When HR told other cities around us, we found one in the state with a lower vacancy rate than us. We were asking for money to have a position to provide a service. We were doing really good at getting the people in to do it. As big as we are, you will always have some number, and that's just your turnover. There's always going to be a velocity that has to be accounted for. Since that freeze, again, we've rolled some positions back in because it was obvious. And we've drifted back up over 7.
Is there a readily available report we could look at for the age of those vacancies? Basically, so we can see which positions have been vacant the longest?
It's my internal report, but yeah,
If you don't mind, I'd like to see that sometime.
we use that going through budget each year. Maybe a good time to bring it up, but the FTE count is only changed by the council. I can choose to fill or to not fill. I don't add positions on my own authority, and I cannot take positions away on my own authority. That's done every year when you do your annual budget.
Do you recall the number of the vacancy rate for 24-25 budget year?
None of the high fives.
We've changed 1.5% in the course of a year.
Largely because of having to put the hiring freeze in on the general fund.
Where would financially when you shift positions, money for vacancies during a budget cycle? So say there is 20 positions that are unfilled in Public Works, just as a hypothetical. And we approve the budget. Do y'all shift that money into Public Works, and then at the end of the year, if those positions remain vacant, do they go back into the general fund reserve? Is that how it works? So they go into that allotted department and then come back if the positions remain in?
Correct. The compensation line items in your budget, you'll remember you've got compensation. If the department has overtime, there's an overtime budget in there. Things like your TMRS, Social Security, that stuff. That is not money that a department head can say, well, those 3 positions, I'm not going to fill them this year, but that gives me $100,000 I can do. They don't
So it
get to
doesn't
do that.
fill,
It stays,
they don't utilize the funds for something
it
else.
stays in comp and benefit and rolls back into your reserve. I think it's the best accountability I can put on something that's as large as this is. Okay? Just a few more. So something, and obviously we're in budget, so this is top of mind for me. I want to give some examples. This is not an all-inclusive list. We just want to give some examples of what we look at that are really out of our control as we prepare a budget each year. So some have seen a few of these examples before. The cost of a half-ton pickup for us has gone from $27,000 to $48,000. Incredible increase. COVID had a lot to do with that. I'd suggest what's going on today, though, the model by which automakers produce and sell inventory has changed. Fleet sales are no longer as big of a focus. We used to be able to get a competitive bid between a Ford, a Chevy, and a Ram. And it is now to where, oh, what do you have? I only have Chevrolets. I guess I'll take those. It's not a competitive purchasing market like it has been for the whole rest of my career. A fire pumper, or what most of us would call a fire engine, those have gone up substantially as well. There's a limited number of those manufacturers. There's obviously a high demand. We need them. And that market has gotten very expensive. If it has any form of what I call a ladder on the top of it, it starts at 2.1 million and goes up. So the replacement schedule on those for us and our fire department, they get the life out of these. Those are going to be a frontline device for 12 or 13 years, just somewhere, right in there. They roll over into a reserve status and we'll get 2 or 3 years out of that truck while it's there. It's filling in for the one that's in the shop, one was involved in a wreck, we can pull those back. If we ever had something happen and it's an all hands on deck deal. It's a small number of extra pieces of apparatus that we can roll into whatever problem we're trying to solve. They're expensive, they take a long time to get, and that cost is continuing to increase at about 15% per year. A patrol car.
Let me ask you a question just on that. So at the end of its life, and you sell it to another fire department, that money goes into the reserve?
Okay, and sidebar to that for just a moment. We've historically, if there was not a surrounding area fire department that was in need of that particular piece of equipment, it goes into the city auction. And we get peanuts. Sometimes we get used peanuts when we sell them that way. So early this calendar year, fire chief and his guys came up with something to try. And y'all actually took council action and authorized us. We've got 2 pretty expensive pieces of fire equipment that are actually it's basically an online consignment system. Because what's happening, we sell one for $5,000 to $10,000 at our auction. Somebody shines it up, does a pump test, puts new tires on it, and it's gonna get resold for much more than what we sold it to them for. We're trying to be that person. I'll let you know if it works. If it does, we'll start doing that. Our fire pumpers are not, I know Councilman Brueggel's got a lot of experience with this. They're not the most appropriate type trucks to go to the smaller towns than the VFDs. They don't carry much water. They are designed to do everything they do hooked to a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
In fact, we generally have more interest if it's something with a ladder or a platform or something like that. Police patrol car, 53,084. Now, that's to get the car. Today's number to put that patrol car on the street is $110,000. Our guys all have assigned cars, guys and gals. They take excellent care of them. Those frontline patrol cars are 7+ years of service. They do a very good job of it, but they are very expensive. Say another way to look at that on the patrol cars. For every 9 new police officers we add, I need $1 million just for the cars. And that just continues to go. A side loading trash truck, 250,000 to 325, and that, it doesn't show in here. There was a year that we were paying over 400,000 for them. It's come back down to that 325. So when I say 6% annual, that's a flat line on that one. There's not as many places that still use side loading trash trucks. And it's because we built our system and most of West Texas did. The industry phrase for those is a West Texas side loader. It is because of alleys. It's because of alleys and dumpsters. We are seeing, and certainly the new UDC encourages this or allows it, a lot of our new neighborhoods are no alleys. Of course, we serve those from the front with carts. Today, we don't have a differential rate for the homeowner, whether they're served by a dumpster or they're served by carts. And we're one of the few that hasn't moved into that model. Carts are more expensive to pick up. The next one.
Wait, what did you say?
A cart's more expensive than a dumpster.
Expensive? No,
To pick them up and haul them off, they are.
really?
Well, you stop at least once at every single house instead of once at every 4.
Wow.
The cart itself is much less expensive.
Yeah.
The servicing of the cart is more expensive.
So theoretically, you would charge more because it is.
Theoretically, you would. Right now, the dumpster side of the system, which is much larger, the dumpster side of the system is subsidizing the cart side of the system. As those numbers, because I don't really think that the dumpster side of our system is going to grow much. I really think the growth is in the cart. You have just under 30,000 dumpsters in town, and it's, Eric, 7,000 or 9,000 carts?
I believe it's, I'll find out, let me verify.
We have over 5,000 carts, and 4 years ago, you had less than 200.
I like to blow away on the windy days out here as well.
They will.
At least you control your trash and not have to fight with your neighbors like a lot of our people do.
So the last one, 9-inch base plus 2-inch HVAC. That is engineer speak for building an asphalt road. So that is a per square yard. And in '22, it was about $88 a square yard. It's now $182 a square yard. What we're really seeing is that while concrete has gone up, it isn't going up near as fast as asphalt is going up.
8,300 poly carts, 8,300.
8,300 carts.
200. Good.
Yeah, that is what, our system's gonna tip over and you'll have to have an adjustment in how you manage the system.
Is that still a one-man pickup operation or is that a two-man?
They're automated. It has the arm that comes out and sets it back down. They're much easier to fish out of the truck than a dumpster is if they fall in.
You can't put a motorcycle in them.
And you cannot put a motorcycle in them, that is true. We've had that happen on our dumpsters, entire motorcycles. And then they call and say they didn't dump my trash. Okay, some services, and the asterisk is because I'm gonna give you a little bit of good news on that one. This is just the general fund, y'all, so this is just the general fund portion of IT. Has gone up by about almost 10% a year. And that's going for a couple of different things. Nobody owns software anymore. Software as a service, SaaS. Thus, you never buy it, pay for it, use it for a few years, buy the next one. You constantly are paying what is in reality a usage fee for that piece of software. That's gone up a bunch. Actually purchasing a desktop computer, and council hears about 90 days ago, y'all let us do basically a 3-year pre-purchase because we got a flat price by doing it. They tell us it's the chips inside of them and it's the fight over the data centers. Who gets the chips? And then it's cyber. Cyber is a continually escalating expense to do that. Health insurance. You can see the change. Now, I will say we're about 95% finished with the health fund for the new budget year, and that number is going to be probably 4% or less. Ooh. Our crew has come up with some really, really good stuff that does not reduce services, but dramatically reduces that cost escalation. I don't know how long I can hold it that low, but I really, really like what they've done for us so far. The other things that are non-discretionary, your civil service departments, the police department, the fire department, they have what's called a STEP pay plan. These are not raises. This is in effect pay for experience. You've been in this rank for X time, you move up one step. X rank, more time, you move up a step. That's about $1 million a year before you talk about anything else we might be able to do for our employees. In fact, 1 year since I've been here, we have had a year where nobody got a raise. It was the COVID year, we all did 0. But you still had the steps in police and fire. That's an approved part of the Chapter 143 state law. So just know that one always happens. And then each year it goes up by an equivalent percentage to whatever raises were granted if they were. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, any questions on that? And then we'll give you just one to put on the table for thinking about. Good on that one. Discretionary, pretty much everything that's not on the first page or not mandated by state or federal law or regulation is discretionary for the council. Our non-civil service, this is general fund only again. So non-civil service, a 1% pay raise is the equivalent of $400,000. And you see the same 1% whether it's for the police department or for the fire department. So just know that those numbers are there. Okay, what we do internally, we've never really showed it at budget. Talking to Hillary, I thought this would be a good idea. We are going to, within the limits of our ability, try to show some revenue projections. So everybody knows all about sales tax. That's an actual number. 2025, that should have been 105. We came in at 100. This is our projected number. Your actual budget number here is 103. We're doing really good on sales tax. And then the model has put out over the next year. This is the year we'll talk about in the budget. And then these are the 3.
And the factor you used for that, which one?
A model that Joe and his team have that predicted last year within $100,000.
Okay. We're no longer at the 4 to 6% annual increase rate anymore. Yeah.
Well, they took those down in the model, which is how they were able to predict that shortfall so accurately last year.
So the model right now projects about a 1.6, 1.7 growth year over year.
Year over year.
Those 4% year over year growth have really come to a
Yeah,
halt.
we sure got addicted to that. sugar candy increase every year.
Like, Jared, do you have like a percent, on the previous slide, you showed like a percent annual change and increase, in cost. Do you look at that when you're looking at on the revenue side of it and compare the percent increase in what we're bringing in, obviously from the growth compared to the cost? Which is growing faster? Cost of buying goods or the revenue that we're bringing in?
Pretty much cost of your non-discretionary items.
So it might be a good way to put that in a chart that shows that the amount of revenue that we bring in, whether from sales tax and or property tax, is lower in an annual percent increase versus the cost of goods and how quickly the cost is rising, the inflationary cost.
You're exactly right, and that was masked. That runaway escalation was occurring during the COVID years at the same time the sales tax was growing by $6 million a year. So it got masked. It became somewhat invisible. We could see it. It was hard to throw it out like this. Again, sales tax actual projected for this year. That's current as of the report I sent out this week. And then how the model takes that out over time. From where we think we're going to end up in 26. Now, the difference between your budget, which is 103 million, and that 105, that difference goes into your reserve, available for reallocation. But year over year, you see now where we're standing. About a $1.5 million year over year growth in your sales tax. So you can write that down and set it off to the side. I'm going to try not to make this confusing, but it's going to get a little confusing. So apologize in advance. This is your actual M&O tax levy for this year. I'm sorry, for 25. This is this year's. The difference between these two is what we got caught in the first week of last August, where those worksheets that are required by the comptroller's office, in effect, reduced your no new revenue amount by $1.8 million. And y'all remember, y'all had great discussions on the dais that to get back to no new revenue, you had to increase taxes by 1.8, which also went against your potential 3.5 and all that other stuff. I can't write that in. We can't account for that in these projections. There's just not a way to do it. That's also why we changed your budget workshops this year, so we don't get caught in it. This is the levy for this year. Therefore, that is, rephrase, that should be what you get from the no new revenue rate next year. Because no new revenue rate is not really a tax number. It is a dollar value that drives a tax rate. In its simplest form, that number plus new property should be no new revenue for this year. So that is how we've done that, and you can see what it is. This was new property. This was its revenue. Those rolled up into this for your current year levy. We take the values that we've got now, they're still preliminary. We take the preliminary new property, resulting revenue at current rates, that's next year. So this will not be to the dollar, but it's really close that the only change from this number each year is this number. Okay? I will guarantee you not one of those is right.
Just hope they're close.
I hope they're close.
But,
And I hope if they're going to change, they do it before I show you your budget.
but going back to the 96,950 for the M&O property tax, that's assuming there's not one of those adjustments, which could lower it a little bit.
It could cause you
Well,
to
we don't
increase taxes to go back to the same number.
Yeah, we don't anticipate that happening this year.
We have no way of knowing. What I anticipate is knowing sooner than we did last year. We have no way of knowing. And had some very interesting visits when that happened last year with some of our delegation, and was told that's not how it's supposed to work. I agree, that's not how it's supposed to.
That'll work.
So it's not a legislative thing that is causing that to happen. It is a rules thing. and that goes out through the comptroller's office.
Now, Jarrett, that can happen because of loss of inventory, right? So it's hard to pick up and move real property unless we have a 1970s style tornado. But, yeah, no doubt. But the way that happens on a practical basis, it's like manufacturing plant closes down and all their equipment goes away, right?
That's part of it. What got us last year were after the fact reductions in value.
Tax protests.
A small part of those were court ordered.
Yep.
The largest thing that hit us last year was property that after the levy was retroactively qualified for agricultural exemption, and that was about $600 million.
Wow.
We never found it, but in fact, the mayor actually sat with us through one of those multi-hour meetings trying to show me.
But surely that cannot happen again. It's not a one-time deal. I mean,
It's one
you're gonna
time-
find that much more
it's one
agricultural
time for that
property.
one piece of property.
I can't imagine that much
Mr.
vacant
Brewer,
land in the city.
The business personal property tax, yes, that can have an effect on it.
Yeah.
We know this year there will be an adjustment because of the increased threshold that exempts business personal. We've already netted in as much as we can, the impact the senior tax freeze has on this. But I promise you we're wrong. I hope we're close, but I promise you something will change. But since we've turned it into a presentation format, each year after we get a real number, the next year is real and the projections can roll out. So a couple of the takeaways. From 26 to 27, you can see the expected increase in sales tax. I'm pretty darn comfortable with that unless something just totally comes unwound. The beauty of sales tax is it is the barometer of your local economy. If things are going up, I'm gonna know that 45 days later. If things are going the other way, I'm gonna know that 45 days later. We get one look a year at the property taxes. It's kind of the base rate versus the volume rate, if you wanna look at it that way. So staying at no new revenue and bringing in the new property, you're expecting the difference in that and the difference in that for money.
Where's your increased number come from? I'm trying to, what's that formula for that?
You take the preliminary value of new property, apply LCAT's calculated tax rate to produce a revenue. And it's not your 47.21 cents. They actually recalculate it based on new value. This time it's 46.
Yes, 46.
It's in the 46 cents. The tax rate, I'll say this the easiest way. Tax rate's important, but tax rate's actually the last piece of what you are calculating. You're calculating revenues, then you go out and figure out what the tax rate is that equals that. But when we say no new revenue rate, when the law says no new revenue rate, they're talking about your revenue. The revenue stays the same, plus new property, and that's it. And again, those won't add exactly because we have to do a separate calculation for the senior tax freeze and the BP stuff and take it out. Okay? That's in your packet if you want to look at it. Call Joe with hard questions.
The asterisk beside the 400 million.
Preliminary number.
They're all preliminary.
Yeah, but we made these up based on that one. Okay, any on that?
So what I read into this is you're projecting approximately 1% increase in sales tax revenue, 1% increase in property tax revenue, at the no new revenue rate plus new property, 1% increase in revenue. So across the board, you're seeing a 1% increase in revenue, and let me flip back here and see that a fire truck year over year is a 15% increase in cost. Pick an item that has a negative increase in cost, and that doesn't exist in here. Federal Reserve's job is to hold inflation at 2.5%. Our revenue is not meeting the inflation rate at our best. at this country's very best, 2.5%, and our revenue increase is not meeting that. Fair statement?
Fair statement. There's some things impacting those two tax revenues. I didn't say this. You had 2 years in a row where your new property was 700 million or better. But I've now had 2 years, actual number given to us by LCAD. Now I had 2 years at basically 400. So 300 million in value has fallen down. I don't think it's going to stay this low for that long as soon as they can get the interest rates down. We're not going to see the huge bump in residential that we had in the past when you're bouncing a 3.25 note against what is it now, 6.4, I think, roughly. That's had an impact on it. Sales tax had come down off of the big rush from COVID. Last year was not just a bad year in Lubbock, it was a bad year statewide. It's not this year. And in fact, we're just right about the middle, if maybe just a notch above the middle on the top 20s in terms of those percentages of recovery. It's coming back. This will move faster. I think that somewhere this will change. Of course, new property generates new revenue, but that revenue has an expense associated with it. We still provide service to it. And we often have provided that service for 12 or 24 months before it rolls into, the rolls. When you talk about the 2.5% target that the Fed has, I might offer an observation to that. The Fed's 2.5%, whatever the stated number is that we read in the newspaper, that number is not based on buying fire trucks, police cars, and trash trucks. We're building roads. The stuff that municipalities buy to deliver service is not considered in that. And as you know, 15% increase in the fire engine dollars is less than the 1% increase in the total. I mean, you have to turn them all back into dollars to compare them, but yeah, the theory holds.
My point to the statement is that our revenues over the last several years have not increased at the rate of our expense. And as we continue to look at what our tax rate is going to be, continue to feel, I think, a pressure, an appropriate pressure to keep the tax rate as low as possible. But we can see that we're backing up in manpower, we're backing up in the ability to service, and we're backing up in the ability to maintain. And so I think, I would just ask that we all consider that as we start looking through this budget to understand that there's only so many steps backwards we take in the budget process before we really start harming ourselves down the road in the 5-10 year picture.
Was that? Any more questions on the revenue projections? Last slide. Food for thought's what I probably should have titled this. These are things the staff and I, the mayor and I have visited several times. Items that we know for discussion we really want to get to. Street bonds. Still like to talk a bit about fee policies and cost recovery rates. I'd like to have a discussion, and this will probably be for next Wednesday, about solid waste going ahead and stepping completely out as an enterprise fund. I will tell you, I think there are definite pros for that. There are a couple of cons to it. Sneak peek, though, the transfer station permit will be issued by October 1st of this year, and you'll immediately, it's already designed and it'll go straight to bid. You already provide landfill as a regional service. You don't charge a differential rate, but you provide, well, actually you do private landfill. You'll have some ability to do that at the transfer station. It's not how we set it up initially, but I think we've got an ability to do that. I think the discussion, and that's a simple, from y'all to me, a yes or no on private commercial service franchise. That is pretty much the standard in other cities, and we don't do that there. Remember, we have a very small piece of the commercial market. If it won't go in a side loader, we won't do it. And I like that. The commercial businesses exist to do that, and they're very successful at it. But it's a consideration. Street maintenance goal, remember, we had been very successful first in shifting street maintenance all to cash funding. We do no debt funding on street maintenance. We got that changed for the first year in 2017. We went from roughly $6.5 million. We peaked at 14.5, and then I got stuck on it last year. So you've had 2 consecutive years of that. Had several ask about charter review, revenue philosophy. Y'all have already started that discussion. Thank you. Quality of life. If we could, I'd like to hold the convention center until next Wednesday. We got stuff in Tuesday that I think is going to help us formulate much better recommendations for y'all to discuss and consider. Expenses, again, this is not all of them, but these are things I know are coming in your new budget. We are still working on 2 meet and confer agreements. Those will be a net benefit. They will come at a net cost. And that cost is not the same as here's 2, 3, 4. I mean, those will come with an increased expense. We're looking at the next fire station, which Chief Stewart and his team has got a plan set up. That yes, would be a new fire station, but what it would do is substitute for an existing one that has a very low call volume. You still spend the same amount on capital when you do that, but what you gain is not adding the equipment and the 3 shifts of people. You've already got that. You just move it to the other one. Public safety driving facility. Since Reese Air Force Base quit being Reese Air Force Base and became what's now the Reese Redevelopment Authority, all the public safety driving training has been done out there for 7 local or regional agencies. We can no longer do that. We will not be able to do that at all. You will see a capital project for a new driving facility that will be owned and operated by the city of Lubbock. So obviously our crews will be first in all of that, but we have talked to those other agencies who are also soon to be homeless from that. And I think for reasonable fees, we can make that available to them. We get to control our destiny. I don't have a choice. I've got to do this. But you'll also have a dedicated facility that's not being shared with other commercial uses. So I think we actually increase quality at the same time that we do that. Public safety training facility, you know, I'm looking at the land swap, which would probably be the bulk of what we would do next year, so not a big expense, but you're going to need a combined public safety training facility in the near future. Transfer station, already tipped my own hand on that one. City Service Center, remember that the land that the transfer station sits on is 71 acres. We intentionally bought a big tract so we could put the transfer station in the middle as far away from our neighbors. That's 22 acres. Today, you don't own a fuel pump that is west of Avenue P. And about 90% of all of our equipment is at Municipal Hill. That was a great place 40 years ago. As the community has grown, I'm spending way too much time moving people and equipment out in the morning and back in the evening. We have already built a very tiny lot down at 85th and P, 84th and P, where I've got a few things. I'm sure all of y'all have noticed, I noticed some of the public has, where we'll hide a road grader over the night or over the week. And where the transfer station is located is the perfect place to build our second service center. You've got city covered east to west. You've got access to Marcia Sharp if that's what you need to do. I think we will gain a ton of efficiency. It'll also let us replace a bunch of facilities that, at least in the case of the old highway department, 70 years old. So, and then some parks capital stuff. It's not a big number, but there's some things we've got to get to in the next year's budget. Done.
Want to take a quick 5-minute break or something?
Sure.
Maybe check that thermostat. I'm rubbing my legs going. I'm freezing too.
I'm not touching
When you
it.
get old, you get cold.
Mayor Pro Tem, you should delegate.
When you get old, you get cold, yeah.
Do the thermos. Whatever you do will be wrong, sir.
Oh, I know. We'll be burning up.
Just a little.
Jennifer's got a
Brain cells are starting to
We in the break?
5-minute break.
Yeah, but it keeps me up, so.
Mayor Pro Tem, can you hear us?
All right, the mic's off, her mic is off.
Just give us a thumbs up.
Did you give us a thumbs up? Pull over to the side of the road.
She may be doing it below
Yeah.
screen.
She's got it.
I'm texting.
Is that cross through the microphone saying she's got hers off?
Her microphone.
Yeah, hers is off.
Ours is on. We're C2.
But do we know whether she can hear us or not?
Jennifer, can you hear us?
Can you give us a thumbs up if you hear us?
Up or down?
Worried that TV would get it.
I don't think
Bill
so.
didn't, he didn't hear, so we wouldn't.
Hope she's not moving, yeah. She is.
Can you hear us yet?
I'll bounce off it.
No,
No,
can't hear
we
us?
gotta
Can't hear
know.
us.
I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
We can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Where is the mic?
Right there.
Should be those.
Well, they're green.
I never did find out whether green means on or they're
No, I think there's,
red.
it means power's there, but that it's receiving.
I don't know. Red is the other color.
I'm beginning to lose faith in our technology and our
Lost
stuff here in our building.
Okay, try it now.
Can you hear us now?
What's the answer to that problem?
New stuff.
This is brand new stuff.
Oh, that's.
A little blue light went on.
Still cannot hear you guys.
That's
Not her
crazy.
though.
Courtney, she knows that we can hear her, right?
Yeah.
Well, the mics are saying they've got
But
a.
she can't hear what we're talking about.
Are hot because everybody downstairs is texting me that they can hear what we're
I'm
talking
texting
about.
Lacey right now.
Oh, no.
Can you call Dr. Wilson and just see, I mean, it looks like the problem's on her end, not ours.
No, well.
But she got her.
Yeah, if other folks can hear, then.
Turn up the radio.
Her Bluetooth or something and not
I'm texting with
If she's on Bluetooth, she may need to turn up the radio.
Yeah, maybe it's her car.
select her different.
You know, where it's not transferring over to
Because that's what my car does. It won't.
It's not working. We can hear her, she cannot hear us.
You're the magic touch attitude.
Lauren's on her way down.
Expectations.
Lauren's on her way down.
How do you know she's listening to DMX?
Yeah, did.
You know, my car,
So
I can't hear mine.
ACMs, is this a facilities issue or an IT issue?
Y'all are fighting over that?
It's a conversation between IT and our.
doesn't warm me up down there very well.
There's a blanket right there. I won't take a picture and share it on social
may.
media if you use it, but it's sitting
Maybe a
there.
cat to sit in my lap.
Yes.
A cat to sit in my, yeah, like a.
Dr. Wilson?
Is my text her?
He's looking down.
She looks down a lot.
I've seen what's on my mind. Just trying to make
No, she can't hear us.
Courtney's been texting her.
Oh, she is.
She doesn't need multiple names.
Oh, sure she does.
She's probably got a fancy enough car where texts are being read aloud to her.
Well, it could be, except she can't hear them.
I want to check and see if Tommy's ready.
She thought it could
I
be.
think it's still brewing.
I just don't even look.
Usually 4 minutes.
That's why y'all may not get a text back.
Well, the mayor's drinking my truck stop coffee.
We don't have a choice. But we might need it.
The finest truck stops all across the land.
And you know what? I've started migrating
Maybe we will.
sugar and cream.
You have? Moving towards black.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lord mercy. We've always been hearing her, but she can't hear us.
Oh.
It's Courtney's fault somehow. Is that your legal opinion?
Yeah, he didn't turn it on to speaker, still can't hear you guys. So even off of Bluetooth. Okay.
Okay.
It's still brewing.
Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Going through.
I think it's on her end for some reason. Don't know why.
Can't hear, there's not much.
Have her say something. We're not gonna be able to hear her?
We can hear her, she can't hear us.
Not right now.
I turned it down.
Councilman Rose isn't here, we can blame it on Nissan.
Can you hear me, Courtney?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's your phone?
The fact that she.
I
turned it
down.
He is
Can't hear
driving.
anything. I'm texting her. Can you say
Well,
something?
I could hear her talking right then.
Yes.
Is that coming through your phone, through our system?
It's going through the system. I
Okay.
just turned it
We've
down.
always heard her. She
Oh, that's
can't hear
right.
us.
I'm trying to manipulate it to troubleshoot.
Just let her focus
Sounded-
on the road.
Right.
Are we recording this so she can hear if,
It is being recorded.
so there you go.
We're live broadcast right now.
So the whole city is seeing our technological
So we need to watch what we say.
witnessing them.
Do you want me to try to hang up and call back and see if something reconnect?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Well, she's.
You unplug it and plug it back.
All of us say yes. She can do this.
And then you're gonna have to re-let her in.
Almost some candy, she said.
Robert, you'll have to let her accept her invite when she re-signs in.
You got coffee?
No, I told her I want some gin instead.
I want Kahlua.
Hey, Joe.
Still gotta figure out where to keep that.
Watermelons is-
We can see that if they watched it off the VCR.
It's only good with SGR.
Almost 5 years.
Dr. Wilson,
I retired from
can you hear?
the city of
You know, there's
Cleveland.
no sin against drinking, it's against getting.
We're still buddies. Yeah.
Tell her Matt said
She
howdy.
she just retired,
know.
yeah.
I know.
No, so can't hear you.
She's 1 year ahead of me.
Years ago.
Oh, really? Oh, y'all were in law school together.
Of course, she's,
Man, that
many
is,
of us, I think she's gonna see some of
That's the wrong stuff.
not that mine is.
But she's been there for
That's what
Yeah,
I
I
think
had
is,
her.
put it on a speaker, and we have
Up
a
until like about
microphone.
2 years
Talk
before I
to Matt,
retired.
he's got.
And then
Nashville.
her, and then Tracy has since left.
You had,
Holly, I think she's still there.
had a meeting with him.
And then Kathy went to Bixby Temple, which is where I
Right,
live.
right.
Where she
Just down the road.
Planning and zoning video.
Hop, skip, and jump down the road.
I'm just saying, if we needed
Oh,
to.
that's funny, we're in school together, that's awesome.
You want me to join?
Dr.
She
Wilson?
looks a lot younger than me.
They have a flavor.
You want me to join?
With a little cinnamon
I just put some.
Dr. Wilson, can you hear?
We worked a lot together, but she would come down to my office and she'd say, Hillary, you remember
in it. Yeah, I would say go ahead, join.
you know what I do? Like 3 years ago for this thing. Can you pull that for me? Because I would have it in a date. I was back here for her to send me. Then her to go remember.
Where is she? That's funny. In her system.
I was her file.
That's funny. I thought you were gonna say, cause these guys do it to me all the time, I'm like, but this is a document. Okay, cool. And I was like, yeah, that sounds better since then.
No, I was always, somehow I was not an attorney, obviously, but I was somehow brought into the fold. So I was always in there doing something or editing this, that, or the other, and so I'm like, I have a quasi.
All right. Always take helpful edits, no doubt.
So that's on the major spreadsheet, or that's on your little?
That's on mine.
Much.
I left here. I've only been
Whatever
city
they want.
Nope. 2 years. I left for 10.
Before my computer dies.
Was in private practice representing cities.
Oh, okay. Through one of the companies? or-
That, thank you, that's what I was gonna ask Joe. I know I have at least,
So I represented planning.
PCR, I like the one
Land,
with
Andrews.
I've got at least 3. I know I have one in Parks, that's like field
Representing Grandview before I came back.
2 in the library that I know.
I've got 14.
Off the top of my head, I'm sure I have more.
You're right, you bring up a good point. So what,
Really?
it's
Okay.
not
It's
filtered
gonna
in
be
the
that.
T rate because like
That.
You gotta take those out.
we had a moment where Mike could fill them.
I got 14.
I may have.
She does come on.
That was just off the top of my head that I.
But anyway, not all of it here.
Hey, can
How is it, Mark?
I can share that list with me, just, because some of them may be vacant, like some of my parents. I think I can open.
Coffee snobs, we can.
It's not that I know.
Had a couple of senior
Drink
grounds.
any of this.
And I've got you drinking
and it's not
cold
that
out of a truck
Put a couple
stop.
of mine.
When you expire 20,
Okay,
you'll have
yeah,
credit,
it just was.
somewhere else, but you.
My mic on, my mic works.
Yeah, let's try, since you're already in there.
But that would
I retired at
impact
43,
because
so.
like,
Yeah, so let them know
that
what.
makes sense, because I may have some in
That's a loop, so we can't do it that way, that's a loop.
Yeah.
Can I take your
Yep.
computer and I'll go outside?
Been living it every day.
So there was a city secretary, Levelland.
You said the loop.
Break the loop.
Now she's become secretary for.
Next stop pulls down the south loop and slide overpass, that's gonna break the loop.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear
Yes,
us?
I can hear you.
Yay.
Hallelujah.
The problem.
All we had to do was throw the computer off the balcony.
Can y'all hear me? I can hear you for a second.
Okay,
We can hear you.
Once again, can you hear us?
Can we remember how we did?
Oh, she said you could hear us for a second.
So I think she could hear him. I think she could hear you.
She can't hear us
She
again.
can't hear us.
I could hear you for just a second and then it went away.
Can you hear us now?
Something to do.
Okay,
Use on the final one.
perfect.
There, hang on.
Who's your mom?
I could also just.
Jared, I'm gonna get back to the broadcast
Your
part.
proposed position. No.
So then we're getting you that list.
Mayor, you wanna recess the meeting and let them stop the broadcast until they fix this?
No, I think that's a good idea. People don't need to watch us. Trying to figure out what's going on.
This is riveting TV though.
It's riveting TV, isn't it?
Riveting.
Okay, well, we're in recess till we get back online because, so y'all go get
Got that,
some to
Robert?
eat, go do whatever you want. All right, we're back.
All right,
Sorry,
slides. Does the,
he's recording.
Robert.
yeah, but do the slides go up?
Can you get those slides up? If they have them.
If not, we have handouts, but Dr. Wilson does not have access to them, so she'll have to listen.
It's clear. Just, it shows what's here.
We can do it with printouts if that's okay with everybody, or we can wait and see if we can get it up. I don't-
I'd
go ahead and start.
Get started with the
Okay.
printouts,
Follow
when it
with
comes up,
this
it comes
when
up.
it comes up.
When it comes up, it comes up.
Okay, so we are at the SWOT analysis portion of the agenda. So we talked about kind of big picture, what it is we're trying to do as government and strong governance. We talked specifically about current financial status as well as some future projections. And I also want to take us to kind of not just numbers, but how are we doing? How do we feel we're doing in serving our community? So when I spoke with each of you individually, I asked you to complete a SWOT analysis. So we'll go through the results of those now. So point in time, where do we think we stand? And then we're going to turn our attention to those items that you identified as either holding potential or holding interest for consideration in either this next year's budget or further down the road. So just starting with point in time, where do we think we are? And so you identified that as strengths of the community, the people having a sort of a common sense of values as a community, valuing the community, obviously Texas Tech being a tremendous resource in this area, that it's a well-managed city and you have good quality city services, strong, good city employees that are effective in providing those services, public safety, providing strong services, economic stability, a good fiscal position, meaning there's strong fiscal management going on and you are able to do much of what you need to and you desire to. It's still a generally affordable place to live, and you have maintained a lower tax rate compared to some other communities. You've got a large area of growth potential, so you actually have the ability to grow as a community. You've been deliberate and diligent in your infrastructure investment and planning for the future and trying to get those assets implemented in good time. Water planning, everybody was very complimentary of the 100-year water plan and sort of making sure we maintain that trajectory. Arterial road construction, I know there's still more to come, but you all felt progress was being made in that area. That you've got a selection of quality of life amenities. We can always have more, but you felt that there was a good availability of those and nice parks. That people are very encouraged about the energy that's happening in downtown, and that obviously there are plans for that to continue. That may take more time, but in general, there's an energy there and a life that is coming back to it. Medical resources being available in this area, and you've got strong legislative representation at the state level in particular. Then I asked you weaknesses. Weaknesses being just the climate, it's hot, it's dry, and so that presents unique challenges, and the topography presents certain challenges. That there tends to be and can be a focus on the short term, like what do we need right now, what can we do right now, and so we don't want that to hinder our looking toward the future. The tax-based balance, we've talked a lot about that with sales tax versus property tax and what that right balance is. Many people mention that they'd like to see a stronger industrial segment, a stronger sales tax base, perhaps a consideration of the way fees are assessed or accounted, not accounted, but determined. So kind of trying to figure out what the right balance is for the community. And so that's part of the discussion that we've started so far and we'll have more of. Economic development, always wanting more. Certain areas may have a greater emphasis or greater opportunity than others, and so really trying to make sure that economic development is broad-based but is also effective and that we're bringing jobs, bringing opportunity. Road construction needs, we saw the price of asphalt just a moment ago. And so obviously there are probably more needs than there are resources, but we want to make sure that we're addressing those as we can. Animal services having needs. I heard that from many of you that there was perhaps a need for more resources to be allocated in that area currently. Some district inequity. You know, you've got newer build parts of town, you've got older parts of town, and so how do we make sure that we're trying to invest equitably across the city? Again, when you think about the governance principles, providing for everyone in the best way we can. What's the greatest good, the greater good? Zoning inconsistencies, just growth over time and things just kind of being out of whack in some places, and what can we do to address those things? Follow through. I don't know that this was necessarily a specific thing, but it was in certain instances the follow through may be slower or not as effective as we would desire. And that was sometimes on projects, but that was also sometimes just internally with requests for information. City messaging and particularly public understanding. So we're pushing it out, but are the people understanding the things that they need to understand? Are we communicating in a way that they can understand? And then everywhere I go, this is one of them, it's the loud voices on social media that can make us focus on things that may be of great concern to a few, and maybe not as great a concern to many, but it seems like it is very prevalent, very loud, very necessary because of that public platform. Opportunities, this is where we start to turn our attention to, are there things that if we could lean into, focus on, move toward, would really push us into the next stage of Lubbock's development or Lubbock's community. And so these were some of those kind of more forward thinking. Some of them are current things that are happening, but if we're considering where we want to go, are there opportunities that maybe currently exist or that we might be able to make happen? So one of them is growth management, just making sure that we're growing smart, that we're growing in a way that is sustainable. We looked at kind of some of the numbers of the new growth revenue and how it doesn't really match up necessarily to the service level demand. And so really trying to be strategic and smart about how we're growing. More economic development, whether that means we just expect more things to happen or different types of things to happen, more funding to be put into that pot. There were a number of different opinions, but I think in general people felt that in economic development could be more or better than it is. In particular, things that got singled out were like industrial development and jobs. So those things that produce the bigger types of projects, the things that produce actual jobs for the people who either live here or may live here someday. There was an idea that perhaps there could be some participation in quality of life amenities through development. So our standards or our expectations, what they should be, or could we think of these in a different way that would bring some quality of life amenities while we're also developing either an industrial or whatever type of project. Is there a need? Is there a potential for a quality of life bond of some sort? Are there those things that the voter or that the public is saying that maybe they want that we might want to put to the voters to see if they would be willing to pay for or to invest in? The water plan, making sure that that is a rolling 100-year, that we're still maintaining and making sure that we're staying on top of that because water is so essential, particularly in this region. Lake 7, what opportunities does that present for us in addition to the availability of water? Loop 88 and I-27 expansion, some projects that are kind of out there that we know may be coming or are coming. And are there things that we as the city should be doing in conjunction with those or to capitalize on those in some way? Public education and engagement, can we do more? Can we reach out differently? Can we reach different audiences than we've reached before? Can we use different messages than we have before? You all saw just the budget, the very limited financial picture. It's so complicated that it's very hard to convey complicated systems to the public who has their, expectations. And so what is it that we could do different or better in the future? Moving projects to completion, the things that are already in the works, there was a confidence that they would be completed, but we wanted to make sure that they continue. Downtown, what opportunities does downtown hold, particularly with the energy that it has, and that led into the Civic Center improvement, which we're going to talk about more specifically next week when there's more information available. Nicer hotels, higher end hotels potentially to attract a different type of tourist to the area, or people who might want to stay longer. Leveraging parks for tourism. Are there sports tourism opportunities with the resources that we have or the amenities that we have? And then canyon development. All right. And then that takes us to your shortest list, which I like to see, the threats. This impending loss of local decision making. I hear that everywhere I go. It makes it more difficult for you all to do what you need to do for the residents you serve, right? So just not knowing what may happen in a legislative session or what decisions may impact you directly in the provision of services that your residents depend on. Water, if something were to happen with water, if we weren't able to provide water, if we lost our ability to control the water that we do control, that would be a huge threat for the future of Lubbock. Misinformation, people out there telling your story but not telling the whole story, right? So how can we stay plugged in a way that allows us to have an educated population rather than a misinformed constituency? The electric utility power grid, the things that happen with that, I think there's still some questions related to the transition of the utility, but then also just the power grid in general, and is it going to sustain, particularly when we think about things like weather, rolling whatevers, and power demands that may come in with development. And then aging infrastructure. If we don't stay on top of our infrastructure, it's going to become devastating potentially, but also way more expensive should these things start to fail rather than just age. So then I turned your attention, and this is where we'll kind of spend the rest of our time today. And this looks a bit like the upcoming expenses and discussion items that Jarrett presented to you. But these were the things that were kind of on your mind as those things that we want to kind of either not necessarily solve during this, but give some direction on those things that we expect to be treated in some way in the nearer term, things that we may expect to be included in this upcoming budget, or those things that we want to have more discussion on. So some of these are in common with what he presented to you. But this is kind of where we want to kind of land today and say, what of these things are of interest to all of you that you want to see happen, and is it possible for something to happen with them in the upcoming budget so that can come back to you in a reasonable way and we can say yes or no or how much. So some of these are those that are pretty specific, and some are a little bit broader discussion topics that may not land on that list, but maybe a future planning. But this is what I heard from you all. So number one was ensuring core services. So whether that is through making sure we have, that we can fill positions that we have available, that we are able to provide the benefits to those positions that they're expected, the equipment to those positions, but ultimately, how do we make sure that we're delivering on the core services as they exist now, and are there those areas that need more resources? When you looked at how much more expensive it's becoming to provide services just because things are more expensive these days, every time we expect the same level of service with less resource, the service is being diluted in some way, right? So I always use the analogy scotch tape and bubble gum. Your city staff will use scotch tape and bubble gum to the end of days behind the scenes to try to keep things afloat. But there's a point at which scotch tape and bubble gum won't hold the water anymore, right? So we want to be forward thinking and just making sure that if we expect a certain level of service, that we're contemplating that as we move forward in funding that service in a budget. Tax rate and sales tax. So obviously we're going to have a bit more discussion probably on what you expect as far as the tax rate to be tax rates, what versions you want presented to you, which will dictate kind of funding availability. But then it was also how do we get the sales tax, property tax mix right? And so some of that economic development discussion came in. Maybe it's exactly the way that it needs to be. That's to you all to determine as policymakers. But that was something that was on your minds, and obviously will be a discussion and part of this budget. Facility and equipment needs. So both in maintenance of facilities, we talked about there needing to be a different fire station potentially at some point in the future. Police cars and other equipment, things that Jarrett pointed out. Public safety. There was police staffing came out of that discussion. There were a number of you who said that there is probably a need there. There's also this meet and confer thing that will happen over time. But then Jared also pointed out some other facilities that impact public safety with, I think it was a driving facility, training facility. And so we've got to start thinking about the timing of those and the availability of funding to produce those. Animal control, there was a concern that there probably was some resource need in that department division because the public is saying that there's too many, loose dogs basically. And so what can we do there? And is that an expectation for this budget, or is it something that can wait? Employee pay, the non-civil service, y'all are civil service, right? Police, that's right. Okay, so non-civil service employees, so those that are not police and fire. In particular, have they received the amount of attention they need, or is there a need there? Downtown, what are those things that we should be doing, or what are the resource demands that may be presenting themselves in the nearer term? And then the discussion about the Civic Center. I think there was pretty broad agreement that there needs to be something done with that, but the timing of it, I think, is somewhat of a question at this point, in the extent of it or the size of the project. Road bonds, staying on top of those. I think when I asked everybody specifically, there was a comfort in this group with that being the funding strategy for roads. And I know that there will be a timeline, which I don't remember how many years out.
We have two outstanding road bonds,
Okay.
each of which are a 5-year schedule. So the 2022 road bond, those projects will all bid out right next year.
Yep.
We have the 2024, so 2029.
Okay.
I think really on that one, it's a discussion of when do we tee up the next ask.
Okay.
to the public.
Yeah. So, and there was general agreement that was still the appropriate strategy, but we'll discuss that a bit more. Road maintenance, are we funding it appropriately? Is there a different strategy? Like what can we do to make sure we're staying on top of that? There were still some questions that sort of lingered about the power utility that we might want to get into. Communication, just general, how do we engage with the public better? How do we put out more information so that misinformation isn't leading the charge? There was a question about the sister city. Pools has been a hot topic that I think you all have been asked to consider. Lake 7 is in progress. Are there needs there? Is there anything that we should be considering related to that in the near term? Are there particular district disparities with any of these things that we've said? Are resources being distributed in a way that is addressing the needs in some of the areas of town that may have more need than they are receiving service right now? Again, that's your determination to make sure that things are being provided in the way that you expect them to. And then the potential for a charter review. A charter review meaning that broadly, not necessarily about just one specific thing, but I think even staff is considering there's some charter amendments that may need to be considered based on changes. And so when we compare that list with what your 25-26 priorities were, they were broad categories, and I think that some of these still exist, but this is kind of a jumping off point for our discussion about what your priorities are for this one. But public safety still, obviously there were public safety issues on that areas of focus list and also on the list that the city manager presented. Public health, I did not really hear much about from you all in in the discussion, and so that may, whatever that need was, may have been specific to that year, and there may not be some specific need for that to have particular attention right now. Fiscal discipline, from my perspective, that's a value, right? Like if we as a city want to be fiscally disciplined, but are there strategies? And so part of that will be, what's our philosophy? What's our philosophy going into this budget with what we expect as far as how we receive revenue and expend revenue? Community improvement, redevelopment, growth and development, and communication. Some of these may be at this point redundant, I'm not sure, and then some of them may just not even really specifically be on the list. So I'm now looking to just sort of open it up for discussion to say, in broad strokes, what are our top categories of priority for the coming fiscal year? Not specific projects necessarily, but kind of broad, like I would assume public safety remains.
I'd say for me, it's, we've had to cut back jobs, freeze jobs, so definitely our employees are a big priority. We need to make sure that, I've had some departments that have said that they need to restore some of the positions that were taken away, frozen. So I think that's definitely one thing.
Are we focusing on these primarily ones that will impact our budget? Because there are some things like downtown development, things like that, that really don't impact our budget much. Do we want to focus just on the budget stuff first, or is it help?
Yes, no, I think we should focus on kind of those things that are going to lead the charge, but then I want us to make sure we don't miss that if the broad category is economic vitality, that downtown may be a part of that, or whatever. So yes, but just kind of in general, what's top of our list?
Well, just like you say, downtown, we still need community development, especially in District 2.
Okay.
Because there's nothing, so that's something that definitely needs to be addressed.
And so when you say community development, you mean economic development?
Right.
Okay.
I would keep.
Yeah, and also like I say, district equity as well. Because I've got some streets over there back on 94th Street that people been living there over 50 years and it's not paved. And I hear that on a constant. But we're putting new streets out on 155th Street.
Is that street on our list of streets to be paved? Jared might have your answer to that question.
But we also have some dollars for, if they haven't been paid, to put paving. We need to look at.
Kind of
So it
along
sounds
that.
like infrastructure, or roads or something.
Well, a little bit along the line of what he's talking about there, and I think it was probably one of my areas, was trying to get our road maintenance budget back up to where it was. We froze it now for a year. We've been increasing it $1 million a year, and then we had to freeze it. And so I think our goal was to get to 20 million. But since that's such a fundamental part of what we do, and people are so aware of the condition of their roads, I really want to get that funding level back up.
And then, of course, with our big catching hell behind the city pools, we don't have
Quality of life.
yeah, quality of life.
I just don't know how we do that. I don't know how that's anything we can do anytime soon, but, I hear it too. I'm like you, I hear it. But.
And one of my pet peeves is the charter review. Because like I say, with the mayor being the mayor, only being there for 2 years, if you do start a project, he's not gonna even be able to see it through if he's not elected, so, that's part of it, so. I think it should be, it's to be discussed, but I think it should be 4-year term, just like everyone else's. not every 2 years. So.
I think public safety needs to remain at the forefront of our priorities. Briefly expand on that, something that's really set heavy with me is that animal services remains a public safety department. We need to continue to invest in there, and saying publicly cheers to the council on what you've done in the last 4 years, dealing with that in the aftermath of coronavirus. Coming in as the new guy, I'm very amazed to see what you guys have been able to do since 2020, and we want to keep making progress there.
Is it true that that's kind of one of our departments, it's hard to get employees in?
It's, I don't know that it's any more difficult to hire men. A lot of people that get hired, that does not work for them. So there's a lot of turnover with the lower tenured employees. But you have a number of employees who've been out there for a very long time.
Is it the nature of the job?
Yes.
It's absolutely the nature of the
I mean,
job.
it's just the nature of the job.
So, something to think of, and I don't know if we're getting too detailed, but this is the group that is dealing with bad animals, good animals, surrendered animals, euthanasia. We still provide pickup of any animals that either pass or are put down at the veterinarian's offices. And then you've got the shelters, which they've done a really good job. Our shelters are not full. We've been able to build a gap in capacity, or a bubble in capacity. That is tough work, and at the end of the day, it has rarely been a fun day for what those folks have to do.
We have spay and neutering issues, we have space issues.
I mean, so that goes back to my question. Is the budget the way you solve that problem? I mean, how do you solve that problem of having employees who are committed to doing that job and are not gonna be stealing from the old lady's credit card when they go in the house, so to speak?
Not there anymore, yes.
Yes, but, you know, how do you get the right people, and what, do you have any, and Stephen's not here, I
It's,
guess.
well, they're there, but that audio feed went out. It's both. It's both. You've got to continue, you know, the city's 144 square miles, so we need to continue to add to those field people. They rotate them, they don't just stay in the field, and that's just to spread the bad part, you know, of the work that they have to do. And continued increases in pay. You're still going to have a churn at the bottom, because that sounds like, and I think the vast majority of people are animal lovers.
And they don't like a lot of fun like that.
And once they get into that, that's just hard. So you've got to just keep turning through it. And every time you do, there's one that stays and two that stays. I mean,
I think an element of that may also be facilities as well. I had an opportunity to visit the shelter a few weeks ago, and we've got some conditions that could merit improvement, I think, which might help with employee morale as well.
Well, the biggest issue is the pay. We are going to have to really review that. We do have some other resources for them as far as, because it is a mentally challenging job as well. When you have to decapitate a dog and you are an animal lover, that's a lot to take in for anybody.
Can you pay enough to make someone love that job or like that job? That's the question. If it's just a job they don't like, I don't know that pay fixes that problem.
When they
You pay
said
$100,000 and it's still a job they don't like because it's awful.
they want to feel supported and valued, and a lot of times, part of it is also the image that the public has created that they're not doing their jobs. They're doing the work, but they are also limited in the number of people doing the work alongside them. And so whether we think that pay isn't important, it is for the type of work that they're doing. So I think that's very important. They also, some of the things, you know, like the fence program, that was something that that the staff came up with, and it works, and it's been successful. They want to be supported in these projects whenever they bring them to the forefront. So I think that we need to be more open-minded about what their needs are, because they're out in the field. They're dealing with these things face to face.
Chrissy, I agree with making them feel supported particularly. I think that helps with morale and employee retention. And just to echo what I mentioned earlier, I think facilities is a big piece of that. I don't think we can go and build a new state-of-the-art animal shelter anytime in the next several years, but we can take the facility we've got and make a few small improvements, I think it'll make a big difference.
Well, and speaking with Dr. Machado, and we had a meeting, if you recall, what was one of the things she said? We don't need to build the building, we don't need to expand it, because if we expand it, then we're just setting ourselves up to bring in more animals. The issue, I mean, we do have some items that they do need to address, but it's not about expanding the facility, because then we open it up to having more animals. And what her biggest concern, and several of the staff, is that we've got to continue to work and stay laser focused on making sure that we're spaying and neutering those animals in our community. That is a big part of the issue that we deal with citywide.
So what about staff and equipment?
There's
Because
always,
this city is growing, so, you know, some people say it takes too long for them to respond, especially in a dangerous dog situation. So I think if we had more employees and more vehicles to respond, I think that would help a lot as far as the animal control goes.
we actually just got a couple of trucks, didn't we, Jerry? And we're expecting some more.
The trucks that we just got in were bought 2 years ago.
Mhm. So, and
And
the
yes,
staff.
there's more behind it,
Yeah,
correct.
staff is still, we still have an issue because of the nature of the work, but we have great people working for us. We just need to keep making sure that we keep that line of communication.
How old is that facility? When is it built?
Is it 8 years old?
Oh, it's older than that.
Yeah.
I would say, I would bet that's close to 20 years old now.
Really?
Yeah. It replaced the one that was over at the hill or out at the property building.
But that one didn't disappear 20 years ago.
You know, I've been back 10 years, and this facility out here was not new when I came back.
Maybe.
It's a good building, it's just, you know, it, like I've said before, it is organized chaos because there's so many levels. So I can tell you, just to give you an idea, we need 2 field officers, we need a dispatcher, we need a shelter officer. Once we get those types of positions filled, it makes it easier to complement the others.
That is interesting.
Did she drop?
That's what it looks like.
Maybe she got out of her office.
Maybe where she's going.
She's gonna drop eventually. She's going to have a work canyon.
I've had some calls from county people wondering if we could work with them closer on animal services. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, so it just ended. Yeah, just Charles.
I've got some concerns about that. Because right now, the county doesn't operate a facility.
And they're not trained, they don't have the
And
officers.
we've set up, there's a slightly differential rate, but that one's not as simple as it sounds on its face. There are ways to build a good and legitimate partnership to do that. They are not inexpensive.
They're not. So that means they're expensive.
They are expensive. Sorry.
He was trying.
And truly, that expense would be on the county.
Well, and that was my point. If they're willing to help fund that, because I have a feeling they're getting some calls too. I don't even know why they would reach out to me on that issue if it wasn't an issue with them.
But the sentiment of some of those a commissioner and how to handle animals is not a very popular way of.
Well, but, it didn't come from him though.
Partnerships with the county are to be encouraged. They are. In lots of ways. And if we're doing it on smaller things, more and more and more, it's a good thing. If you were to bring the county or one of our sister cities, you were gonna bring anybody else into that operation, they would have to 100% cover their part of that load, where we're taking the issues we have with our folks
No, that would never be. Back.
But we're already taking on some of those issues, and that's the disappointing part.
Either start reimbursing us or be more supportive.
Where's the backup?
I mean, do we provide services to any other city at the moment? But
Now,
some,
but in an emergency,
yeah, we might send
we
somebody
will,
out there.
we will go and help.
Okay.
And there's been a couple of those that made the news over the last 2 years. Well, we will do that, just like we would anybody. But as a routine service, no.
And the county, for them.
If there's some emergency that requires
Still
one of our
emergency
trained people, you know, we will go.
Not an established relationship. People are saying, we'll do this for you, and do this, just an emergency situation. Okay.
Kind of a mutual aid, if you would.
But something that we recently did also, Mark, or Mayor, is that we did a grant, a small grant request from them for the vaccines. That would really help us too, but.
I mean, I just don't know if they have budget money to help us do something in this area.
Yeah, we totally willing to sit down and talk to them. We would need to see what their level of service is today, what they would like it to be, and what is costing extra on their part.
It's similar to talking to them about fire, which we kind of talked to them a little bit about too.
Management.
What?
Also,
Emergency, that's right, emergency management.
something you can add up there as far as resources, because I've been wondering what happened to like summer programs and things like that for people in this city. I mean, because, you know, we, there used to be programs for teenagers and not there anymore.
Can you give me an example? I'm sorry, but I can personally tell you that we have a lot of the same programs, Parks and Rec and with the libraries that we've had several years. And just FYI, the Patterson Library is one of the most active libraries for youth programs.
Right, what they're doing as far as hiring teenagers in school.
Oh, well, that's I think
We
our
used to
focus.
have that.
We
Yeah, but
really can't.
It's a liability.
And so what we've been doing in lieu of that is we run our summer field apprentice and office apprentice program. Those are both funded through the end of this year by the ARPA dollars, the coronavirus relief money. But that funding ends at the end of this year, as well as the funding for the employee education program that we do. In fact, there's a budget amendment on Tuesday's agenda to at least get us through what's on the deck with that one. It's been incredibly successful.
Very successful.
So if we could, you know, back to animal services, and I think one of the things that cities always have to look at and consider is what is our building maintenance program, and are we short in having done maintenance and improvements at the Animal Service Center or not? And second to the people, and I don't know how this works or if it could possibly work, but oftentimes if I get a call about a loose animal and this animal is loose, is this animal aggressive or is it not aggressive? And but with 6 or 7, 8 animal control officers and 144 square miles and shifts and et cetera, it's going to take a minute for an animal. If they were free and if they were in the truck, it's still going to take a minute for them to get there. And oftentimes that animal has moved. And so if we could utilize some of our other resources to at least track the animal. Is it aggressive? Is it dangerous? A call to the city could or could it not go to PD, who is likely in the neighborhood closer, if they're not on a call, if they're not on a high priority call, great term, Mayor. If they're not on a high priority call, could they assist in tracking? And thus allow that control officer who has been trained to capture a dog, et cetera, to get there and actually do the job and not find that dog is now 20 blocks away and we can't find it again.
Well, just like animal services, LPD faces their own struggles, so I don't see how we're now gonna take officers that are needed on the streets to be focused on animals. I mean, I get what you're saying, but they're also not trained. It's a different type of training.
Well, I'm not asking them to
Talking about
pick one
tracking.
up, I'm just asking them
Capture
to,
the dog. He's
Can
talking
we
about
help
tracking the
track?
dog. Where's the dog going?
There's a lot
one
of,
who is aggressive. And there's a real difficulty in that phone call coming in to say, hey, there's a dog loose. It looks mean, and it isn't, but it has if that dog is loose and it has responded aggressively to me, then that might warrant, some assistance in getting the animal control officer there. And I don't know if that
but aren't
works. I mean,
aggressive dogs
I'm just trying to help
registered and
blend
as
those
a
two.
result-
Dangerous dogs.
Dangerous dogs, that's
There's a
right.
little bit of a line.
But not before their first time.
That's right.
There's always the first time.
First bite.
The first bite's free.
Don't let them get in the county.
Well, it kind of goes back to you said you used to be the purview of the police department a lot, the dog problem. But it's not anymore.
What you know is animal services.
Yes.
Were the people you've got today under the supervision.
Under the
directly
supervision of the police. But I just don't know if Tim's point of trying to at least, it's not the loose dog problem. I mean, that's a problem. It's more of the spaying and neutering for the loose dog. But the dangerous dog is the actual public safety part that I think all of us
And
worry
PD
about.
frequently exists with the aggressive calls,
Yes.
especially if there's actually been an interaction with
Yes.
direct interaction.
Because if the call goes to 911 or something about dangerous
If a
dog.
human's been attacked, it's gonna go to more than just animal control.
I think the question in this
How do we address
context
it? I mean,
is, do we think the city manager should be considering additional positions, changes in policy, facilities improvements? What is it that we're what do we think is going to help alleviate or fix the problem? And is that something that we can address or expect to address in this year's coming budget, or is it something that we're looking at long-term? Again, a new animal control facility, long-term, right? But if we think we need to have a policy change or, I know that's not what you want. I'm just, sorry, bad example.
I think the council member's correct.
Yeah.
That's well proven.
If you build
a
it, they will
facility
come.
at 300, that's what you have. You build it.
So in the short term,
People, there's already a facilities improvement plan that's in the draft budget that starts knocking out, I think the first big one may be the HVAC system.
That's what needs it most.
I think
Okay.
that's the one that's in there for next year.
okay. But then when it comes to personnel, do we think
Additional.
there is an expectation that we
Additional.
should consider?
They have key positions that will complement the efforts and simplify. So yes, we need to fill those employee positions.
3.
We also need to look, and this is crazy, but we've done this can apply to lots of departments. We need to do a review of several of the ordinances. I think, we kind of did that, but, there might be some areas where we need to review again. So, I don't know, I think that's important.
What is the makeup? I mean, if it's just sticking with the public, the animal control, because that seems to be a fairly hot topic.
Animal services.
Well, animal control is the part I'm really concerned about. I'm not servicing those animals, I want to control the animals. So what's the makeup? You got Stephen, what's the structure of that department, just generally? Stephen Taylor?
Stephen's the director, Taylor Ruggles is the assistant director. You've got a small group that's dedicated in the shelter. So that's exercising the animals, taking them in and out of the kennels, cleaning the kennels, feeding. There's actually the best place we probably have for volunteer input is at the shelter. They're incredible volunteers.
And donations.
A lot of donations that come in and do that. To do other things requires certain state licensure. So the people out in the trucks, the people that are licensed to do the EU, those are often the same people. So you roll them in and out of different roles so that one person's not doing EU every day, for 7 days a week, like that. Then you've got some staff that's, we've added dispatch people front desk people and field people, I think is what we've added, and
That's what we've been
7.
adding.
Mhm.
What's, like, how many dispatch? We have 3?
I can get that.
We need,
One dispatch.
we need another
Well,
one. It's,
They have more than one.
have
What
more
they
than
have them
one.
doing may be different.
yeah. And,
How many field officers do we have?
we're lacking 2
How many do we have?
out of,
I think it's 14.
but we have some out because of injuries. We have some that don't have a vehicle, so, but, you know, everybody.
What's the good of a staff person without a vehicle, a field person without a vehicle?
There you go.
You switch on shifts.
What are the shifts?
My understanding is most of them work during the day, but we do have an on-call person in the evenings
And weekends.
and weekends, yeah.
And there's Stephen and Bill that can answer questions.
We're talking a lot about animal services.
We were not hearing a lot of it, so I'll answer what I can.
So, yeah, go ahead, ask him what.
How many staff we need?
We currently have 34 full-time employees and 4 part-time.
That's
That's
needed.
counting from me all the way down to part-time kennel techs.
34 full-time and what, part-time?
4 part-time.
I was saying, how many is needed?
How many of your field, how many of the field services part of it? And that would be the people who go out.
ACOs.
We have 13 field officers that run 7 days a week, and one of them is on call every night.
We're shy 2, right?
We put in for 2 on this budget cycle. Right now, we had 1 that left the department today, so we're 1 position down.
So of your 13 authorized, you've got 12 on staff.
Yes, sir.
Stephen, tell us a little bit about the vehicle purchasing issue. You and I talked about that a few weeks ago, but just for the benefit of the rest of the council, that's been a real challenge for you guys. Tell them
Yes.
what you've been going through there.
So our vehicles cost about $105,000 cage unit and chassis. And right now, it's about a 2-year wait. We do have 5 ordered. 3 of those are replacement, and 2 of those for officers that we got last year in the budget cycle. Some of our trucks are 2011 models.
We talked about certification pay as well. We're kind of clarify a little bit or expand on certification pay for our folks.
So to be an ACO, you have to have euthanasia certification and at least basic certification through the state. I myself have also had chemical capture. I had advanced ACO training. And so certification pay would give you a little bit of a raise for each of those certifications you have.
That are necessary, especially because we have a smaller staff and we talked a little bit about the county and some of the work that we're having to take, or even supporting some of the officers that are calling our folks. We expand on that.
Yeah, so we do help agencies, whether it's LPD, Lubbock Fire Rescue, EMS. Anytime there's an agency that needs us, we do help. We also work some with the county ACOs, the Sheriff's Department, things like their euthanasias on surrendered animals. So we do help them out some. Our jurisdiction is inside the city limits, so we try not to go past that.
Something that some of the field officers mentioned is maybe creating some opportunities, and I did inquire with SPAG on possibly doing something like that would be beneficial to our folks and county folks so that they don't have to depend on us.
What are you talking about?
Well, since SPAG has their own training, that maybe looking into offering some of the training needs that would benefit everybody in the area.
So with that, you would be, if you went through SPAG, you would be a licensed peace officer. So you could issue warrants, you could do a little more of the work that we're having to put off on LPD currently, because we're not licensed peace officers, we're just animal control officers.
We don't have any ACOs that are licensed peace officers right now.
No, sir. I can't recall in my 13 years of ever having one.
But the biggest issue is that it's very expensive, and we would not want to put that on our folks.
Right. Just off the top of my head, I'm gonna say it's about $3,000 to go through that training.
And the advantage of having a
How many
licensed
hours,
peace
Steve?
officer.
I don't think there is for animal control. How many hours for the basic police officers academy versus the basic ACO?
I do not know. I know basic ACO is 16 hours. It's a 2-day course.
Basic peace officers academy's 700-800.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 6 months or it's a long.
What's the advantage of having a licensed peace officer?
You'd really
There's not for animal, for what we're trying to do.
I was just
And
saying, I
it
can't see
will
why
make it
that
more
would be that.
difficult to continue to add and fill positions.
Yeah, I don't see the advantage to us of doing that.
Or to retain.
If you're talking retaining, probably the certification pay would help as much as anything.
So let's pull up and out of operational and start talking about policy level decisions. It sounds like there is a general agreement that animal control needs some sort of attention. What that attention is would need to be determined, but it's also what we can afford, I suspect. So is the general direction to ask the city manager to consider what we could do in the coming budget with the resource restraints or constraints that we're facing, as it being a priority for this council to do better than we're doing? Is that? Okay. Okay, so animal control, I think, falls on the list. And whether that means 3 positions, whether that means 1 position, whether that means some other solution. Okay. Now, on the public safety side, when you look back at the city manager's list, he is anticipating the meet and confer agreements. And when is that?
If we reach agreement with each of they're 2 separate agreements.
Right.
I want to be clear about that. If they're going to be monetary, they need to come forward with this budget.
With this budget. So that is something that is going to impact this year's budget.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that that is happening. Now, what about the fire station, driving facility, and training facilities? Are those what's your sort of?
The number one
forward
priority of those 3 is the driving facility.
Okay.
Because I won't have one before very long at all.
And is that something that you're contemplating including in this year's budget, or will
It's
bring
in
as an
this year's
option?
report. It's being
Okay.
designed right now.
Okay. And then what about the other 2? Are those future needs? Are they something that we need to consider in a bond package in the future?
They're nearer term. I don't
Okay.
know that they'll be recommended in the coming budget, but they'll definitely be within the next 2 after that.
So what aspect of them will be included in a budget? I mean, because we can't pay for a public safety facility out of a budget line item. I mean, it would be a bond, it would be a capital.
It would be in capital.
Or maybe a bond program if we had a bond,
Would be eligible either for a GO or CO funding.
either one.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to get to on the driving track is at worst, doing that as a tax note, which is a short term, get in, get out, and be done with it.
Are we, as we look at the entirety of a training facility, are we, and the immediate need for a driving track, are we trying to take a 30,000-foot view and say this driving track can incorporate with the overall plan for a training facility? And then is that training facility being thought of in such a way that it can complement SPAG, can complement our surrounding communities in such a way that we could get
So there's
the
3
facility monetized with
Three
some revenue?
true components of all of this when we talk about public safety training. Driving track, which I don't have a choice, that has got to come forth and get built. And I think we have the place to do it. Training facility will be designed as a joint training facility for Lubbock Police, Lubbock Fire. That's definitely the model in the industry. Those things in the facility that are common space, you only have to have 1 instead of 2. And then the stuff that's unique to either of the 2 specialties, of course, is built separately. The third component that's related to police is your firing range. So we worked with the chiefs. Can we do all this in one place? Should we keep them separate places? What we're looking at the moment, and obviously don't want to discuss location right now, the driving track and the combined training facility would not be the same place, but they would be close. Looking at the firing range facility, it can be expanded where it is. Today is rough, it's basically a 2 large bay facility. We're already to the point we could justify a little more than 2, but not 3. But we're in discussions with partner agencies because SPAG has lost their firing range. We are in discussion with that one. When can we expand to that 3rd bay, knowing that our partners would be in effect funding a portion of it, not all of it, but a portion of it. We'll be clear on the driving track to get where we need to get in the time frame that we've been given. That will be a city project. We'll absolutely make it available to others, just a pay-to-use type deal. I think they will get more use than they've been able to get at the current one, just because the current one's used for other things, and this one would not be. It'd be dedicated. I do not see us trying to build a single facility that'll incorporate any 2 of the 3 components. To get it on a piece of land big enough to do that and to comply with the regulations will be a long way away, and it's going to be very big.
I want to go back to employees. I know we went to public safety, but can we go back to employees?
We were about to, but let's finish public safety real quick and just make sure we have a concept of what we're facing, and then we'll move to employees, because that's right where I was headed next. Is there anything else related? We know they have steps that have to be included. We know that they, are there additional position needs? Are there?
So both of the meet and confer agreements contemplate additional staff.
Okay. So we are expecting that, and at this point, it's an unknown. Okay.
It's a not finalized.
Not finalized.
Do we have a deadline for that meet and confer to be concluded? Do you have a deadline?
They've really got to be wrapped up by the 1st of August, at least in terms of the financial component. The council only has one time to do that. Remember, we'll do your budget workshop Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the 1st week in August. Tuesday, the 2nd week, is your council meeting. That is the meeting at which the council has to propose the maximum tax rate. You're not adopting it, but we're saying, here's our maximum not to exceed, and you cannot change that after that point other than to go down. You can always do less. You can never do more. So if the agreements are ready in time and contemplate funding, that will have to be part of that discussion.
Hopefully, yes. I mean, it really does have to be part of that.
No, it's an absolute.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, I don't think we can do it without that, right?
No, they'll be adjusted accordingly.
I guess the one thing I would say, since we've talked a lot about animal safety, animal services, meet and confer, and all that falls under public safety. I guess my thought, and I've said this for quite some time, because we don't all have the same opinion on tax rates and everything in here. But I do think that if we can focus what we need on public safety and what that does to our budget, even if it means a tax increase, that is certainly an easier sell to the public. If we're very clear about whatever that tax increase is largely public safety. And because I think generally they are supportive of that. But they're not generally supportive of tax increases generally. They understand that. And if we focus everything kind of, and keep a focus on that, it may help. From my perspective anyway, I think it makes it a lot easier to put a budget together.
Let's jump to employees. So employees in the whole that support, all the operations of the city, obviously. I know that we looked at some numbers for health insurance increases and hopefully being less terrible than they have been.
I think they'll be significantly less than they have been.
So we know that. So now tell me what you're thinking with taking care of employees.
So in speaking of public safety, some of our civilian employees are in a position where they're not getting paid properly. And so what's happening is we have employees that are having to turn to social services programs, food stamps, all of this stuff. We need to get them at a living wage, and this came from their administration. So I think that's very important. We also have several departments that are also feeling the need with employees pretty much in the similar, they're needing a pay increase just to make a fair living wage. And having a lot of folks turning to those social services programs, which it costs us more to replace an employee. And we've all heard those numbers. I think just to have a new employee come, it would cost us about $23,000, just where we could use a little bit of that money for retention. So
let me break that one apart and ask you this, and ask the group this. Is the thinking that we need to do a full-blown compensation study to see who is most under market or whatever and make adjustments that way? Or is it a blanket COLA of some sort? What's your expectation, and what is contemplated currently in the way that you do your budget?
We've generally done it as across the board. I mean,
The city did a compensation and pay classification study before I got here.
10 years.
And it was partly implemented. It resulted in some folks receiving raises, some folks actually, nobody that was currently in the job ever got paid less, but the people coming into the job got paid less. And the short version is in a perfect world with no other considerations, a true compensation study is what to do. What I have seen historically happen, you're going to find that is very, very expensive to implement. And there's ways to take pieces. We're going to go with whatever. But you're setting an expectation, if the council does that the council will fund it. And I don't know with the other things, until we sort out everything else that you wish to increase funding for, I don't know that you're in a position to do that. So over the last 3 years in a row, police and fire have each gotten a 4%, 4%, 4%. Civilians got 4, 4, and 2.5. So.
Well, I took exception to the 2.5% last year, and I hope that we're not setting ourselves up to do that again. I think, we recognize the public safety staff and the difficult job that they do. But I think it's also very important that we recognize the rest of our staff is experiencing the same type of cost of living issues that we have. And to Christie's point, I think we are seeing some of the effects of that. And it also is the retention. What is the cost to onboard a new employee? What is the cost to the downtime that we have? And across the board, I've heard people say, anybody that makes more than $100,000 shouldn't get a pay raise. Those folks are the people who are the most recruited, the most heavily recruited, and the most apt to have other offers. So I don't really take that to heart, but I do think that it's very important that we consider all staff to be equally critical to our day-to-day operations, whether it's someone who's works for the water department and is in a ditch at midnight in freezing weather fixing a water leak. We had several last Saturday, right? Mm-hmm. On July 4th. Mm-hmm. Missed the parade because we got to go fix a water leak, right? Those folks are critical to providing services. We put that as one of our top priorities is providing services. We have to have the manpower who are capable, willing, and there to provide those core services. And so I think it's important that we keep our staff, whatever COLA, if we're going to call it a COLA, cost of living, those folks are experiencing the same cost of living as everyone in the city. They deserve to be compensated or increased at the same rate.
And speaking with, when you talk with citizens, you hear animal services, solid waste, you hear all these different departments. Well, they're having retention issues. We have the freeze. They're going to, I tried recruiting someone that works now, used to work for solid waste, went to another company, and my issue was, well, we've got great benefits. She said, I have benefits there too. And I said, yes, but we have everything I tried to push. Here was her biggest issue. We just don't pay enough. We don't pay enough, so that becomes a retention issue. And I think that it's important, if we're gonna, as this city continues to grow and we're not making that investment in our people, it is going to continue to trickle in the services that we provide. So we need to make sure that we're making a full-on commitment to our employees, our civilian employees that are so important, as well as all of the folks that are in, public safety.
I guess my approach to that's different than that, because I look at retention rates or vacancies as an indication of whether or not you are paying. If you can't fill a position at that pay, then that pay is probably not where it needs to be. But if your positions are pretty full, you're probably paying something close to a market rate for that position, or it wouldn't be filled. They'd be going elsewhere. And that's not necessarily true across every department. We've got a 7.4% vacancy rate. That's overall. Are there departments where we have a greater vacancy rate, and is that associated with the pay not being where it needs to be? Or we have one where it's pretty full, and maybe that's not where we need to put the dollars, because every dollar you put in a department that is full means a dollar you can't put in that other department to get the position without raising the tax on the taxpayer. So that's how I look at it. I don't like necessarily across the board, everybody gets a raise, you get a raise, you get a raise, you get a raise. There is a certain base you need to do that with, but there's also some departments may need it more than another department. And I think you harm yourself sometimes when you just spread the money equally around over the surface, and you still have gaps in some other departments, and you've not been able to bring that salary up to where it needs to be because you didn't have enough money to do that. So that's a little bit, and I don't know if we've ever done that analysis by department as to where we.
No, we've seen it happen where you bring one up because of the vacancy, and what you did was put the vacancy in the department that had been full.
You have to look at this.
Yeah.
I think another metric that could be considered in that is what's your turnover rate? If you've got $15 an hour customer service agents and we're not having a vacancy there, but we're having a very high turnover rate, that maybe is telling as any other metric because we're not able to keep.
That's another metric to put in the.
Yeah, I think that, so as you look at saying we've only got a 7.4 or we have this 7.4% vacancy rate, the turnover is I think a component, and it's also, again, back to the other piece of this is what's the onboard cost. And so if we're having a high turnover and we've got a significant onboard cost for training, how can you change that? And
so, if you don't mind, I'll add a little to the onboarding deal. We've just taken the final step in moving to a very automated onboarding process. We talk about the cost of replacement, of turnover, of filling a vacancy. I think HR and their team has done a great job of reducing both the cost of us doing that and the time. Instead, where you see the negative impacts are the actual time it takes to recruit a position, because during that period of time, somebody else is having to either cover it, or if we've hit the limit of human capacity, things are just not getting done. You talk about your employees that may be licensed professionals or minimum degrees required. Those are very expensive positions to fill, and they are not generally able to be filled very quickly. Yeah, I get it. It's a higher salary. It looks to be a more attractive job, but the qualifications are significantly higher. The pool from which we can draw those folks is smaller. There's a big cost in that time to fill a position. And as you get up into the more specialized, you're not putting out job opening, you're literally recruiting. In often cases, we actually go headhunting to try to find the best people, that we can get. 2 years ago, onboarding process was very manual, very expensive, and very slow. But I really want to give them a shout out. They have done a lot. I think they turned the last piece on last week or 2 weeks ago, the NeoGov portion.
They're still working on it. We don't have the LPNL on it yet, or
That's Harvey though, and he's behind you. Don't worry
I
about it.
know. We don't have the LPNL or
Harvey.
police and fire yet, but Gabe has really taken the lead and worked with Elizabeth on that. So it's pretty much online now. There'll still be a new hire orientation and all of that, but the paperwork and everything is digital now.
The most recent hire took
1 day
3
now of
days.
onboarding, much more useful. Who are we? What are we? Either myself or Bill, Brooke, Eric, one of the senior team, we always speak to every class that comes through. We take them now and get to show them every city facility, when in the past we didn't have time, to do, not every literally, but most of them. So that's good, but when somebody is not, when a job is vacant, you're shifting that load to the people that are already there in the state.
And on that note, staff has really taken one for the team, and that's been great. We applaud them. We're grateful to them. But they're feeling the effects. They're feeling the effects from Parks and Rec to Animal Services to Solid Waste to, we could go on and name somebody in every department, but, I think we just can't afford to we've got to fill some jobs. We've got to fill some jobs. And the other part is, and I don't think that the police chief would mind that I said this, but when we address the civil, the jobs of the civilian jobs, he's the one that brought that to me. So obviously there is an issue and it impacts.
Economic development.
Probably more resources because Lita doesn't do anything for District 2.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Yeah, put industrial
I
stuff.
was gonna tell you.
Yeah, industrial, that has not to do with commercial and people's way of living.
But it's not.
It doesn't.
Let me just tell you this, that LEDA does have a grant program that has helped, they have done everything to try to recruit these folks to apply, but there's limitations. And sometimes the limitation is the council. So,
I think it's also important, Mr. Harris, to recognize that type A economic development organizations are not allowed by law to contribute to commercial development or residential development. They can't do anything for retail. They can't do anything for food services. They are not allowed by law to do that or to contribute to residential development aspects. So what they can do is the industrial component, but not the others. And so I don't think it's fair to expect LEDA to have put up a housing development in any district because they cannot do that by law with those funds. I think as we look at economic development,
That's a specific kind of economic development, though.
That's correct.
There are other kinds of economic.
There are other
development.
kinds of-
Itself cannot do anything that does not.
They cannot.
Primary job.
Primary job has to
Generally
be
means they're producing a service or a product that is used outside of
the
where
city.
it is made.
They
That's
cannot.
why it can't be retail, commercial stuff inside small
They
scale.
cannot encourage its shopping
It's,
center. They cannot
things that-
incentivize a shopping center.
The economic development doesn't have to be done through LEDA necessarily.
That's the other part.
In the conventional sense. So what we saw on 34th Street, I've been officed off 34th Street for about 4 years now. The reconstruction of 34th Street really developed the economy more than anything over there. That and the facade grants that we had, massively impactful. We're looking back 6 to 8 years ago, 34th Street was a little bit of becoming a bit of a desert. And now it's looking great over there. That impacts, of course, Districts 1 and Districts 3.
And 2.
But
We don't have a facade development
But
program.
we did.
we did once upon a
We
time.
did, but we don't have 1 and 2 at the moment, right?
Right. well, we don't have one in 3.
We've got
We do have
downtown,
one.
do we have downtown north?
We have 1,
The
2.
program was started for basically the Parkway Strip in District 2 and downtown. And it expanded over to 34th and to North University.
So Parkway is still in it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
they still have that.
Okay,
And
they're
so
still in
it's
it.
now 1 and 3 have been added into that.
Specific pieces of
Yeah,
what.
not the entire 34th Street, but.
So let's take that back a little bit further when we talk about LEDA and we talk about Market Lubbock, which is a separate entity. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Market Lubbock budget in 2010 was $3.1 million. I believe our Market Lubbock budget last year was somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.1 million. So as the city's grown, we have not kept up. In fact, we have diminished Market Lubbock's budget over time. When Market Lubbock was originated, voters approved 3 pennies on the property tax rate to go to Market Lubbock. Mr. Atkinson, are we at 1.5 today?
Well, it's closer to 2, but yeah.
Closer to 2. So we've taken 30% out of their market, out of their budget growth that they should have been receiving. Since 2010, council has approved $10 million of Market Lubbock money to go to Parks and Rec facilities. So not only are we not funding them the way we were, we are now dipping into those funds and reallocating them into other departments. While they may still have benefit to the community, they may still drive economic gain, they are being directed into projects that maybe we should have just said, hey, we need to fund soccer fields, and let's do it without doing it out of some other department. This is right pocket, left pocket economics in my mind. Let's pull it out of that pocket and let's go spend it over here. And I have an issue with that. We've talked about that in the 2 years that I've been on the council, and I'll say it again here today. If we want economic development to occur in such a way that Mr. Harris is talking about, we need to leave them alone and let them do that. When I got off the LEDA board, we did not have debt. Today, LEDA has had to incur debt to continue their mission of primary jobs, to build and facilitate facilities like Leprino that has made a huge impact in our community and will continue to do so. But we have, by not allowing that money to remain where it was allocated originally, we have forced them to at least take more than they would have had otherwise. I think LEDA would have had to incur some debt to continue the things that they're doing to the benefit of the community, no question about it. But to me, it seems that we should be honest with ourselves about the things that we need to do and how we need to go about them. And I'm not sitting here to advocate a tax increase at maximum rate every year that it occurs. I'm saying that if we pull money from one place and put it in another, then there's a shortfall somewhere. And we need to be thoughtful about how the very hand that feeds us, which is economic growth, be it employees, be it facilities and property tax, have been cut short, has been reduced, has not kept up with inflation, has not kept up with the city's growth. And I think that's counterproductive to us in the long term.
Well, and speaking of being counterproductive, we were talking about economic development, and some of the funds that we were talking about that benefit 19th Street or 34th Street or North University, we had some council members that went and made different ways that the people could access them. And that, yes, that made it kind of difficult for some of these folks. We were already at a process, and a difficult one at that. And so that put a stump to economic development in our neighborhoods.
Explain that a little bit more. I mean,
We had some council members that met with the LIDA folks and changed some of the dynamic of applying the guidelines. And, you know, it's already a difficult process and it's difficult to recruit. And then we went and we changed guidelines.
Well, but the guidelines, if the ones you're talking about are the ones I'm thinking about, it was to tighten up some of the ways it could be used. Focus it more towards tax-producing entities. Wasn't that the change we made?
Was part of it.
Well, I think a significant component to that, and I was a part of those conversations, yes, along with Councilmember Glasheen.
Yeah, we weren't all
had
privy to that though. That's my concern, you know.
We all had an opportunity to vote on it, without a doubt. But one of the things that was happening and one of the things that was of concern was we have a facade grant going to nonprofit organizations. And that's what
stained glass windows are the ones that always got me, you know.
Exactly right. We had some facade grants going to stained glass windows and other nonprofit organizations. And those, a metric was designed to balance out for-profit, nonprofit tax revenues. Does this building improvement create more tax revenue? Does it create more traffic to that facility? And those were some of the guidelines that were created by Market Lubbock and adopted by the council.
So.
But let me go back to your issue on Market Lubbock. So how do you see Market Lubbock restoring maybe some funds that have been frozen or cut from that, addressing Gordon's question?
Well, I think as Mr. Bruegel pointed out, there are some benefits to these facade grant programs and other programs that Market Lubbock can do that do reach retailers, that do reach areas that aren't primary job creation that LIDA can't do. And so every dollar that's not there is a program that can't be implemented in an area of need. And so as you pull $10 million out of that organization that goes into something different, worthy spends. I'm not arguing the worthiness of the spend. I'm concerned about how it occurred and where those dollars came from. I would love to say we're going to spend $10 million on parks, and this is a great place to do it. We're going to add ball fields. We're going to add soccer fields. We're going to make improvements that bring visitors into our city. Those are great things. But they need to come out of one of our economic development agencies.
So let me ask you a question, Jared, and maybe you know the answer or not. Of a facade grant program, of the money we currently have appropriated to it, are all those grants used up every year? Have they been
Not necessarily every year, but they'll hit a year that they're a little up and a little down. So just real quick to help with this part of the discussion, I think everybody knows, but LIDA is funded by a 1/8 cent sales tax. It goes direct to them. Most chartered economic development corporations in Texas are going to be at least hit a quarter rather than
at least twice that.
An eighth. Why is that?
No, I said at least twice that.
Yeah, exactly, at least twice that.
I know why it is.
Market, but you don't want me saying.
Well,
Market Lubbock is funded by property tax collected and assessed by the city and then granted. Market Lubbock's a nonprofit, which means they're very flexible. They have a lot more latitude in how they can deploy, those dollars. The sales tax money's type A, primary job, all of that stuff. But as you talk about, LIDA's revenue will grow as the sales tax grows and only as the sales tax base grows. Market Lubbock, the change that was made by the council 2 years ago is that it is a direct grant that's based on a budget each year. It's no longer pegged
3 pennies
to any particular pennies. One time it may have been 4 pennies, and part of it went over to mass transit, to city bus. A piece of that is the city's business development office now. But yeah, so when you talk about it, you are talking about the totality of your property tax levy.
A piece of it still goes to LIDA.
Well, No property tax goes to LEDA directly. You grant money to Market Level.
And it gets transferred.
They have the ability then to transfer, and they transfer, I believe it's 1 million a year to help them with the existing and presumed debt service projects.
Because they only have an eighth of a penny.
So when LEDA was created and the opportunity was created by state statute, you could use up to 1/2 penny of sales tax to go into economic development. Amarillo uses the full 1/2 penny. We use 1/8 here. I don't know about other cities comparable or close to our region.
Would be pretty common.
Yeah. But we collected the full 1/2 penny and took
changing it.
It
raising
relieves
it.
some of the compression that happened in the new state formula to change it to general purposes, which is police and fire. I digress. Okay, so for economic development, is there no particular expectation of additional funding resources going into that pot in the coming fiscal year?
I would just hope that we're not reducing those agencies further, and that we could, from a mindset, say, this is a valuable service that they provide in economic development, and utilize those funds for that purpose, and not say that, oh, here's an aggregation of dollars that we need to deploy in other departments around the community.
Let's take a quick break because I don't want to continue a conversation without David here.
Yeah.
So let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we may have to wrap up a little bit more on economic development. Move on. Okay.
While we took the break, quality of life, I think there is an idea that this is potentially the subject matter for a future bond election, bond program, bond something. Not necessarily to be included in this year's budget, but something that we want to consider in future years. Is that the concept? Is the bigger picture? What do we need to do to add to quality of life? Am I seeing nods?
Yes,
Okay. I mean, I know we want to do it all now, but
yeah,
okay.
we need to focus on,
This one is future. Okay, so now let's talk about, we talked about concepts, so district equity and then ordinances and the sort of review of those policies. Those are policy discussions, policy decisions, not necessarily budgetary decisions.
district equity could be budget, but I think what Gordon said and what I also believe is that in our budget, we need to make sure that we are mindful of district equity.
Okay, so let's call those policy. And these are, so again, kind of as a value statement, we want to make sure that when we're distributing road maintenance funding, that we're considering all districts, right, and those kinds, okay, good. So then that takes us to road maintenance funding. And so there was the discussion about, we had a certain level of funding prior to, I guess, was it just last year that it reduced?
We were able for a number of years to increase by 1 million a year plus a $500,000 set aside that's unique to the inside the loop part of Lubbock. And then last year we held the funding flat. We had the 5 million sales tax shortfall and those other things, and we came out of that flat.
Okay. So is the council's,
So it's still 14.5.
Yeah, we didn't go back, we just didn't go up.
okay,
And
so,
that's 14 million in general fund cash dollars and 500,000 that comes from your dedicated gateway fund. And 500 is in addition to the work we do inside the loop.
And is it true that your goal is to try to get that to 20 million? Is that, heard that? Is that kind of your?
I think 20 over a sequence of years. If I went from 14.5 to 20 tomorrow, I couldn't get that much work done. We don't have the base to do it. But if we can continue to push it at least have a goal of pushing it by X, and I think it's for y'all to tell me what is X.
We have seen improvements, you know?
We have, and when the new LiDAR survey gets done, that'll go against the one, I think it's 6 years ago, and give us a really good checkup. And maybe I could ask a question if y'all don't mind. Street maintenance is done based on need. Not done it because of geography necessarily. And most of y'all know, but the way we do it is generally it's a 2-year sequence. If I'm gonna work on X neighborhood, the first year is when you go in and you fix the concrete and the gutters. You got big cracks, you do that. And the second year is when the public sees the improvement. That's when, can I talk about my seal coating? Okay. There's a common street maintenance technique called seal coating. Some people call it chip sealing. It's the same thing. You want an example, and it's now about a month old. East 19th from the loop going east, which is a high-speed roadway. It's a TxDOT roadway. They just seal coated that. In the old days, seal coating caused a lot of, it's the best way to maintain a street because you actually increase the thickness of the street when you do it. And it caused a lot of aggravation though because the rocks were white, oil was black, didn't adhere maybe, and if you drove too fast on it when it was fresh, it threw rocks on stuff. Absolutely true. The newer method of doing that is using what they call a pre-coated rock. So now the rock is black because it's already been coated with your asphalt that your emulsions that you're gonna use. TxDOT moved back into doing that, and they're doing it on 60-mile-an-hour roadways with really good success. Would y'all be willing to entertain at least maybe a seal coat pilot? So it generally, and I don't have the current numbers, we're trying to get TxDOT. It will generally not be more expensive than like the micro surfacing we do, which is when the street turns black when we're done. But that micro surfacing does not increase the thickness or the traction part of the asphalt. Seal coating will. In a prior city, I did it. When we switched to the pre-coated rock, we went through a big series of PSAs. We actually went and seal coated a piece of one of our parking lots for the news media. It requires people to move their cars out of the way, which they do anyway for micro. But now it sticks much faster, it sheds much less. And in terms of extending the lifespan of that piece of asphalt, it's still the best thing to do. In all fairness, you'll still get calls. Because if somebody drives down it too fast right after it's done, but TxDOT's having great luck with much higher speed roadways than our residential streets.
I've seen it done in surrounding communities around here, and it's a really great way to do it from what I've seen. So I would love to see seal coating done here in town.
Thank you. Anybody?
Anybody got?
Okay. So as far as the funding strategy as it is being employed currently with trying to increase every year, is that still what your expectation is for the coming fiscal year within the constraints of whatever's available?
Yes, and the other part is that I think staff has said that we're gonna really focus on arterial roads this time because we're getting so behind. And so I think that's also positive for all of us. So we're gonna pull away a little bit from neighborhoods and focus more on that. So I think that's a good move for the entire community.
And then the road bonds don't come in, I mean, you're actively in bonds, but you're not looking at an addition or renewing a bond during this fiscal year, or you are?
Joe, would you go get John, please? Thank you. We're gonna ask John Turpin, the city engineer, to come in. He manages all of those.
So we've been increasing that every year by $1 million, right? And we were able to do that during the period that we were officing our sales tax for $46 million every year, which we're not gonna see now. So if we wanna see it go up, is this a proper place to kind of have a conversation? We only go go back to 1 million? I mean, we froze it, so we didn't get 1 million last year at all. Increase. We want to try for 1 million this year to get back on schedule, or double it, because we lost a year without 1 million, go to 2. But that's gonna mean other things you're gonna have to worry about.
Something else will have to give you those dollars.
Yes.
That's the.
And so, I mean, is this a point to have that discussion here, you think?
I think you can start that discussion, yes.
Certainly, I think last year was an anomaly, but we're not seeing the revenue projections rise as fast as we had before. I don't know what the timetable might be for our capacity to increase to 20. If you said to us, we could do $20 million worth of road maintenance a year 5 years from now, then we'd need to stay on that $1 million track to fit growth to capacity. But I haven't heard you say that, and so I don't know. So if you would say, Tim, we can't get to $20 million worth of road maintenance for 10 years, then I could find good reason to say, we only want to gain by $500,000 over the next 10 years to get us to.
With the information I've got today, you're probably looking at a minimum of 7 years.
And so we could go up $500,000 a year for the next 3 or 4 years, reevaluate, you get there. Maybe we've got a year where we have an exception and we can do something, accelerate that. Let's put that on they. The next council members can cross that bridge when they get there. But if I'm hearing you, we might have overage this year to do $1 million. But would you?
$1 million's gonna be very hard this year.
So it's gonna be hard to do?
The fund.
Okay.
Without increasing the recurring revenue, and that's what you're doing. We're trying to fund as much as we can out of your recurring revenue, and then those available reserves first go to that. Reserve money's one time. If you build it into your recurring, the battle to increase it gets smaller and smaller each year.
So $500,000 sounds appropriate to you?
Yes, and I would say if I see more, I'll be glad to throw it.
Well, you know,
Jared, are we on track to spend all 14 million that we've allocated?
Yes, ma'am, we are. And remember, the budgets never look like you spent it all because the street maintenance season and your budget season are two different parts of the calendar. So what you don't spend by October 1, the way we do it, rolls into next spring, and it just feeds itself.
I think that.
So not looking at the financial number from basing on like man capacity, what could we have done in this year? Like what could we have completed if they had an unlimited budget?
That is something
Bad question to ask a city manager.
that is something we have, David and I have discussed.
Come up here.
That is something that David and I have discussed, and we would be just a little over 18 million, just shy of 19. So between 18 and 19 million is something that we feel we could administer within that year period. Beyond that, it would be hard to administer. And the other thing we're seeing on the street maintenance side too, that's really important to note, we were on a trend of seeing increased cost, and the last couple of times we've gone out to bid for street maintenance, it's come in under budget. So we've been able to do a little more than expected. So that's a good sign. I hope it sticks, but we have seen prices level off there on the street maintenance side.
And then also, I think Gordon mentioned the unpaved roads, but we have the SIP that comes out of the bond, right? Is that how that works?
That's the last set. So you have right at 41 miles when the council started this years ago, when they started doing the unpaved roads program, you had about 41 miles of unpaved roads. By the time you finish out the last set through the 2022 bond, you'll have accomplished a little over 8 miles with 33 miles remaining. So that is something that y'all need to consider as you look at future projects. We haven't come back to you for additional funding because we wanted to utilize all the dollars that you've given us. And like I said, we've got the last part of the 2022 bond is paving of some unpaved roads. And once we have exhausted that, we'll be back to where we don't have any additional dollars budgeted. So
So we didn't have any budgeted in the 2024 bond for unpaved roads.
I'm not thinking of unpaved roads for residential, for
Right.
arterials, yes, yeah.
Yes, but I'm talking about residential.
Yeah.
We did not have that.
Not for residential, no, sir.
Eric, what do we spend annually maintaining unpaved roads?
Maintaining unpaved roads.
Grading them or whatever.
We can pull that if we don't have it. Let us pull that number.
We'll get that. It's not a very large number.
I wouldn't think so.
The unpaved arterials were the ones that were killing us on maintenance. Up, 98th and some of those were.
Get heavy traffic.
Well, and we would have to put magnesium chloride down to keep the dust down on them, and those were very expensive. But they were 50-mile-an-hour streets.
We tell citizens or neighborhoods that we will come and do their streets every 10 years. And, we have not done that with all of our neighborhoods. Is there a way I know you have to identify when the last time we actually did that. Is there a way that we can identify some of those neighborhoods and maybe prioritize them?
So one thing that I think is more important than even the timing is really the condition of the pavement. And I think that's what David and his team are doing right now with that paving index. That'll give us a good idea of where roads sit, because we're trying to basically achieve a score, and some roads are driven on more than others. So that, to me, will really drive a lot of the council's decisions and our recommendations moving forward once we have that updated paving index.
I don't know if everybody's heard about that. Can you share a little bit more information about what that is? Because I think it is a great thing, but I don't know if everyone knows about the
And
paving.
over to the expert right over here, Mr. Bragg, he can.
Voted on it the last city council meeting.
Two meetings ago, the contract was
Well,
done.
then we're good.
Come on up, David.
All right.
Yeah, we've already voted on it recently, so.
You're good, you're good.
We're good,
Mayor,
we're good.
can we get
David,
the-
you were there. David
can we
Bribble,
get
you were
John
there, so.
John.
On the bond.
Oh, yeah.
Need this, John.
The other David.
Thanks, Jared. Good evening, council.
I call him.
Timing on a bond.
So what I would lean towards would be potentially doing something, actually taking it to vote, similar to what we have in the past, where we try to get it done during the summer, maybe in 2027. I've had some thoughts about that, and I've been asked about size, potential size. I would like if we could do something similar to the 2024. I think workload-wise, we could handle that and keep that initiative rolling. And it kind of fits within that 3-year window that we've talked about for potentially doing a new bond.
So that the vote would be in November of 27 that you're thinking?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
So then that
With
would.
the CAC potentially folding in during the summer sometime.
And that's an area where, my district didn't get a lot of miles. So that's where I think it's important when we're talking about district equity. That would be important for us, for me. I'm sure Gordon feels the same way.
John, when do we anticipate the completion of all projects on 2022 and 2024 bonds?
So 2024, I think, goes all the way into around 2029. We've made some really great progress on 2022. Avenue P has slipped a little bit from where we would like to see it because we've had just tons and tons of utility issues in that corridor along 146th and Avenue P. So we've been shifting and moving and trying to we're getting everything done as fast as possible there, because those are the two projects we were trying to get out this year. You'll obviously know that we were right on time on Broadway. But as far as the 2022, I believe we should have everything under construction probably late 2027, hopefully, would be our goal.
Still gonna hit our 5 years.
Yes. We're gonna do our best to hit our 5 years. The right-of-way's all coming in very quickly. The one project that's been delayed the most is the one that council's already aware of, which is the 19th to 34th section that had the issue with some of the relocations of houses on that one. MLK, we plan to come to talk to y'all here pretty soon on progress on that as well. We have one tract left on MLK to 82nd Street for that portion of that project. So 2022 bond, I think we're on pace. Yes, ma'am.
George's concern, John, would be moving ahead and already starting to evaluate the possibility of a bond in the next year or so is losing citizen support on that. You know, without showing a majority of completion on projects that we've already had them vote on, the sentiment then becomes, well, you haven't even completed what you started. Why should we vote and give you more money to continue and move on? I think we see the utility of being more proactive versus what happened last time, you know, where we were so far out. But that is a concern of mine that we start to lose citizen buy-in on those if we do them too quickly.
Okay, yes, ma'am, understood. You will see it to where we're gonna have to start considering availability of contractors, because we're gonna have basically a stack of projects that we've got all the right-of-way done, and right now we're working on utilities on both 66th and Upland 50th to 66th. That's right-of-ways complete. So both of those have potential to go, but I now feel like I need to pay attention to how many of those projects or streets are under construction all at the same time. So we will have many streets coming out that will show the progress onto the 2022 bond. So I feel like we'll be able to show great progress on the 2022 bond. And the 2024, we feel like we're generally on schedule with the exception of the Avenue P that's had all the issues with the utilities that there's just so many in that quarter that we did not expect. So
When you do this out over 5 years, do you do about 20% of it a year, or is it loaded up at the front end and tails off at the back, or how's that usually work?
What do you mean, Mayor?
Well, if
as far
you
as
got a 5-year period for that bond, you know, so you've got, is it pretty much equally divided, the work you do for over the 5-year period? The budget amount committed, the work?
Obviously, we front load as much as possible on the design because we want to get those done as quickly as possible. That leaves us as much time to go grab the right of way. With the right of way and utilities is the greatest amount of time.
The front end is more engineering design right away, and the building doesn't start till a little bit later in the process.
12 to 15 months for the design, and then from there on out, it's just trying to convince the landowners to for the need for the right of way, and then the next thing, because none of the utilities will move until we have the whole right of way corridor bought. So that's the thing that takes us the greatest amount of time, and sometimes up to almost 18 months just for that.
Like you said, the people don't see the engineering and the right of way buying, and they're going, what are you doing with this money you took out of my pocket? We're using it, believe me.
We are using it, yes.
So you're thinking your goal would be in 2027, another $110 million street bond, something like that.
Right? Yeah, and if it needs to go to 2028, I don't see an issue with that either, if that's the way. But I think in 2028, we will show
for sure
a lot of progress. I mean, I think that the public will be able to.
27 or the 2022 bond is either finished with everything or the last two are wrapping up. Yeah. The 2024 is still going, so you'll actually have stuff that's finished and in progress to show.
And we'll have more under construction on the 2024 as well. So.
Jared, were these bonds, were they 20-year bonds that we issued for the road bond project?
They were.
And so as we work our way into, again, the long-term plan of trying to do 80 to 120 million every 3 to 5 years, and at some point, we start to roll these bond debts off, and they're not necessarily as big a tax impact. And so there's a lot of value to this consistency programming, and possibly some value in identifying projects early, identifying the possibility of getting some of that engineering right away, and pre-planning done so that you could come back sooner with trucks and tractors, rather than losing that 18-month period if there's a way to do that. And I don't know if there is, but, I don't know if you've started identifying where the next $100 million needs to be spent. I'm sure you have. If you haven't, I would encourage you to. You probably know where the next $500 million needs to be spent. But, if we can at least think about, what's going to be our top priorities incrementally, maybe we can do some of this right-of-way purchase sooner than later, engineering sooner than later, and be ready.
Along with your question there, I think I've always heard that in 2022, we've gone, since our last road bond.
2007, I
It
think.
was 10 years.
So, and how much was that bond? Do you remember? What was that bond? Does anybody remember? But it should be rolling off in 2027, should it? I mean, the payoff on it?
Yeah, we have those sheets we show you that we call the debt profile that contemplates on and off. We've also had a positive effect in lowering the general fund's debt obligation through the refundings and using revenue bonds instead of making everything onto the GO side. Last year, we were able to actually reduce the INS rate, the portion of the tax rate that pays for those bonds. Council was able to reduce that by roughly a penny a year ago through a buy down that we did. Not firm yet, but it really looks like we'll probably be able, even though we've added another withdrawal, we've pulled more money down. It looks like we will either have a flat INS rate or very, very close to it. So the deal that we worked on last year really worked well, and it looks like it's going to work well again for the next year.
And I guess my only additional thought on that is, I don't know, 2028 seems that's a general election year too. And sometimes it's easier to get positive votes when a lot of people show up than when they don't. That might be a better year to try it. And if you're going to talk about eventually a quality of life bond, if you do that, you have to do them as separate bond proposals.
They can be on the same ballot. They're two separate questions.
Okay. All right. So maybe by 2028, we would be ready to forward with something like that.
Dang, are we gonna have to hear about pools every day for the next few years?
Only in the summer.
Well, yeah, only in the summer.
No, it comes up in the winter too.
I'm going to say yes to that question.
Okay. So, charter review, it sounds like there's an interest from the city manager, staff side, and the council side to potentially do some charter review, charter election. And is that a 27 thing? Is that a?
That's gotta be soon, doesn't it?
Yeah, it needs to be soon.
It has to be soon.
Doesn't it?
It needs to be.
Well, I don't know.
Because we have to make the adjustment from the city secretaries for elections and districts. Does that even matter at this point?
You talking about adding districts?
Oh, no.
The residency requirement?
No, she's talking about adding 2 districts, I think.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about
Yeah, that's
that.
part of the.
I mean, that's
part of the charter
come in and
too,
figure
that
out what
as far as review, as far as the residence requirement, that's part of something that, I wanted to.
And so your timing, this is just anything we want to put on a ballot. If you were going to go in November, council has to call the election mid-August. You're going to go in May, you call it in mid-February. Right? Is that right? Yeah. Mid-February. Those are your 2 choices each year.
August.
And there's an expense if you're not already having an election.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So timing it with an
Already
election you're having,
election.
yeah, makes sense.
But to the point of initiating a review or a rewrite, a start over, whatever.
Not start over.
Well, I think there's certainly enough things that we would want to touch on inside the charter that either way. But the concept of beginning to look at the charter does not require an election. So we could go to work on the charter. We can
Review.
request staff to and set up teams, hire consultants, et cetera, to work our way through this long before there's a need for an election, and to identify the things and how we want to what changes we want to see made.
We need to do
You would
some.
have to do that, because when you call the election, you're gonna have that language.
Yeah.
So to the point of, we're not doing this in August.
Yeah, we couldn't.
We're not beginning to think about November of
Putting it in
'26.
an election, but we do need to start
Working toward it.
reviewing it.
Yeah.
Well, step one would be, yes, the council is ready to start the process. Step two is to get your charter review committee put together. Just out of the selfish need to pass a budget, I would suggest maybe September is when y'all start doing that.
Yeah, yes, we don't need to
know
throw
the
something else on that.
Yeah.
We know the priority.
So an expenditure of staff time, resources, but not necessarily calling election in the next fiscal year. Okay, okay, good. And then facilities, I think, Jarrett, you had something that was in addition to some of the other discussions we had, am
I think that part, that was written on
Animal
there
services.
relative to the animal services.
Oh, got it, okay. And then we had talked about public safety facilities, the
Driving.
driving facility, and then the others that might be future needs. Okay, all right, so then that covers our list that we identified as our starting point for discussion next time. But what I want you all to do between now and then is consider that, maybe take a picture of it, and then also look at the list that Jarrett provided and that I provided, and just make sure we're not missing something. But remember, we do have financial constraints, and so we can't do everything. But these, I tried to identify those. We're gonna have more discussion about the convention center next week. And any of these, I suspect you may bring back some more information, or you may have further questions so that we can narrow
Questions
this.
or data that you would like, please get that to me and we'll pull all that together for you.
And then for the purposes of next week's discussion, again, no commitment. We are comfortable with considering bonds in the future. Okay, looking for an affirmative. We are comfortable with considering the different rates within the law of the property tax system.
Explain.
Beyond the no new revenue rate. Can we look at the effective rate? Can we look at the other rates that are great? Because then that will allow us to look at what capacity we may have and what choices we may want to make with some of these. And is there anything else, Jarrett, that you need before we walk away from here before next week?
We talk about fee policy,
fees.
cost recovery.
That was the other financial.
Oh, I think we absolutely have to.
As we could have an impact on my budget.
Yeah, as we talk through, and we've made some changes in sports and rec fees. I'm not sure that we're completed there. Things may need to be adjusted up or down. We'll have to ask Ms. Witcher and Mr. Van Gundy how those things are working out. That's one area for sure. I don't know about your enterprise fund rates. I don't know if you want to try to tackle
More general fund. So the enterprise funds, we've really had pretty good success in at least benchmarking the fees. The actual rates are a byproduct of the budget, and we do those, and need to do those separately. More what's going on in the general fund.
Like permits.
Permits, rental fees, usage fees. What
Cost
we've spent
recovery
the last,
philosophy.
yeah, cost recovery philosophy. What we've spent the last few years doing is really getting rid of fees. We literally were at a point in some of the cultural services groups where there was a rental fee per chair. You want the room? Yes, sir. That's great. Would you also like a table? You would. How many chairs do you want to sit? And we've wiped a bunch of that stuff that truly costs more money to attempt to administer, and it's not real. But we still have some fees that are pretty old. And when I talk about cost recovery, I think there's a couple of components of that. And we don't need to finish it today, just I'll tee it up for you. My view of it, there are certain things that we charge people to rent. Think of a park pavilion. Well, that Park Pavilion is out there for as broad of a group, as many different people as we want. So, and a made-up number, it costs us $1,000 in staff time to do that. Not gonna charge $1,000. No, it's gonna make it unusable for people. So the cost recovery for something like that is a low percentage. Then there are things, and one that's come up at one of your coffees, somebody rented an entire park and the street and police and amplified noise. And our recovery, that was for a closed event. Our cost recovery for that was extremely, extremely low. Should it be at that level? And that's for y'all to decide. But you've got quite a few fees scattered out through the general fund that are like that. And if we want to make changes, what I think you could get to is kind of a benchmark. You would eat the elephant once if you chose to make the changes. But in the future, the changes would be very minor and only based on the change in that actual cost. So instead of having a $5 or a $50 or $100 change, it might be $4. Don't have to in there, but I think it's a place that maybe we should talk about.
Another area, if we're talking about fees, is in planning, and I know some of the fees, they all have caps, and we need to look at collecting the plat fee, the ZVLs. Some of them haven't had increases in 5 years. Also, like differentiate commercial versus residential. So those were some of the issues also that.
Some of those are controlled by state law. They're not set by state law, but how we control them.
The ones that aren't, let's look at them. I said, but the ones that aren't, Mike.
Oh, trust me, I've got every single one on a giant spreadsheet.
So is there an interest in at least reviewing the fees and considering whether they're
too high or not
correct at all? Okay, but that's not something, those fee changes couldn't happen ahead of this year's budget?
No,
So this would be a review?
Any changes, your rates and fees are set by the budget.
That's right.
But we do need to make sure that if we're gonna do fee increases, that they coincide so that groups don't, I mean, look what happened to us last year with some of the groups that had those increases and weren't prepared and had already sent out their stuff to their folks and then.
Participants and collected based on an
Colby and Brooke are looking at that as it relates primarily to the athletic stuff.
Yeah, when do you impose that new fee? You know, not in the middle of when people are signing up.
After.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, and we could include fee waiver and those.
Until the end of a season or something like that.
I think that's
There's a lot of that.
But
I'll wrap up just the road, go back to the road thing. We kind of talked very much about, are we agreeable to $500,000 this year? I'm trying to give Derek as much help as we can.
What I heard
I
was
saw mostly shaking heads on that, and so,
what I heard was $500,000 more if you can.
Yeah.
okay, everybody
That's
kind
what
of
I
like
heard.
there?
That plan's a good starting point.
Okay.
well, I
More
want
if you can.
I
More
want
if
to
you
hear
can.
from staff before I commit to that. David and John, tell them what you just said, because I don't think they were in the room when we talked about that.
Now, we were trying to talk about how we've been going up about $1 million a year, but had to cap it last year, hold it steady because of the sales tax figures not being what they needed to be. But what could we do this year? Go back to the $1 million, go back to our $1 million and add the $1 million we lost last year, $2 million. But generally, the discussion from Jarrett was, if we do that, it's gonna put a lot of pressure on other areas that we've talked about and are priorities for us. So I think the general consensus I got was maybe $500,000 for this year, increase in the road maintenance budget. So there you go.
Want me to hop up there?
John?
No, so David, John David.
David.
I've been called a lot of things and, so I'll take either one of those. But yeah, so really where we stand is we will be happy to take whatever we can get. And the good thing, Eric, I think mentioned, we are seeing a decrease in prices. Now, we can always see that go up. Unfortunately, a lot of what we do is dependent on price of oil. But even with that, we got a bid back just, I think it was last week, maybe a week before. It was lower than what we estimated, pretty significantly. So, we're always happy with what we can get, and we take pride in spreading that out as far as we can. And whether it's $500,000 or $1 million, we will make that.
We'll use it.
Go as far as we can. So we'll absolutely use it, and like Eric said, we can only go so far. We're limited by staff as far as that 18 to 19 million. We can only administer so much, but we'll be glad to take whatever y'all can find to increase
So it
that.
would be what then,
15
Jared?
million.
15? Then I will support 15. So I guess that's $500,000.
What's happening?
Yeah.
All right. You got one hard number.
I did, thank y'all.
One other thing, one other thing to think about, we don't have to stay long to discuss it, but would be to consider if and how we replenish the general fund reserve from our library facility purchase a couple years ago. I feel like that is at least some concern. We use general fund money to make purpose of the library branch, and I don't know.
Purchase of Go-To-Key.
Yeah, of Go-To-Key, and I don't know if we.
I thought we had something that offset that.
Oh, we had leases.
I know we had the leases, but I thought we had something that helped to offset that a little bit. No, it was just broke.
You had a future savings that, it didn't give the library any less money, it just meant it cost us less money.
And I think they bargained a little bit less than that helped. That's what it was.
Yeah, Brooke and her group, that was a good deal on that. Yeah, and the net effect of that was that available reserve, that gap between what's in the bucket and what I've got to keep in the bucket.
Yeah. And so at least some analysis of what needs to be in the bucket and to consider.
I tell you that, my preference on that is that after we appropriate available reserves to spend in the next year, you have 15 in that bucket.
And we have.
Much now.
15.1.
10.1?
15.1.
15.1. Oh, it's come back up, okay.
15.1 as well.
But remember, what I should have is about 25 to leave us at 15. So if we do the street maintenance, we do everything, all the other capital vehicles, that fun stuff, I'm gonna be below 10 significantly. Now, sales tax being above budget is gonna help, but that helps the following year.
Well, and so I guess my point is that we allocate some of that assistance that we might get from this year's overage in sales tax to ensure that at least a percentage of that goes back to the reserve.
It'll all go back.
It all goes to the reserve.
But not to be reallocated.
But
not for it all to be reallocated.
yeah, it goes in the reserve and then we can allocate or not out of that.
Tim, let's just take it from Mark and Lubbock.
There we go.
I'm sorry, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so what's up next week? Next week, we'll come back with this as our starting point, with more information, more discussion, and then we'll really try to hone in on what it is we think are the top priorities and can we necessarily afford them and to what degree, so that we can give direction to the city manager as he prepares his budget. So again, think through these items that we identified as kind of highest level, but then also don't let the other things fall off the list. If there was something that you're like, oh, I wish we could have had a discussion, we'll also go more in depth on the convention center next week. So y'all have been awesome. Sorry it's a little later than 5. Hope everybody can make their appointments. And I'll see you next week. Oh, I guess you got to close the meeting probably.
There being nothing further on our agenda for today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.